Chapter 861. Long Fei Yi pulled the lead dancer away from Long Fei Yi and pulled her over. Han Yunxi was instantly stunned. She didn't even care if there were spies among the dancers as she watched the lead dancer being pulled over by Long Fei Yi. This action was very familiar. He had pulled her into his embrace like this several times before. Han Yunxi's eyes quickly moved from the lead dancer to Long Fei Yi. What did this fellow want to do? Long Fei Yi's speed was even faster than her thoughts. Han Yunxi did not even have time to think before the lead dancer slammed into the table in front of Long Fei Yi. The lead dancer's slender waist slammed into the table and her upper body leaned down. Half of her body was pressed against Long Fei Yi's table. Just how painful her waist was from slamming into the table, only the lead dancer knew. She was in so much pain that her expression was twisted. She thought that the East Qin crown prince would forcefully pull her over the table into his embrace, but who would have thought that he would have this kind of attitude? Han Yunxi did not expect this and almost broke out in laughter, but it was a good thing she held it in. A trace of doubt flashed in the lead dancer's eyes, but it quickly disappeared. She was still very calm as she looked at Long Fei Yi and acted like a spoiled child. Your Highness. I'm in pain. So painful, so painful. For a while, other than the dancers, everyone's attention was focused on them. They were all curious as to why His Highness would make a move against the lead dancer. The soldiers present more or less understood His Highness. He had not touched a woman for many years, and it was well known in the army. Long Fei Yi looked at the lead dancer, not moving for a long time. It seemed like he was examining her, but it also seemed like he was teasing her. No one could see through his attitude. How could the lead dancer see through him? Your Highness. What do you mean by this? I don't care, so you have to give me an explanation. The lead dancer's voice was so soft that it entered one's bones. Many people present felt goosebumps and their hearts began to race. This lead dancer was a stunner. An absolute stunner. Not doing anything and just standing in the distance was enough to make many people's imaginations run wild, not to mention acting like a spoiled child. His Highness making a move against her, perhaps he really did have some thoughts. His Highness only favored Han Yunxi before, but after Han Yunxi's identity was exposed, His Highness must have been hurt. In this kind of event, it was not impossible for him to indulge himself. Although His Highness had Bailey Mingxiang by his side, Bailey Mingxiang was the official consort of the palace. No matter how beautiful these dancers were, they were only there for entertainment. The lead dancer couldn't figure out Long Fei's intentions, so she quickly twisted her body and shot him a coquettish glance. Your Highness, speak. Why did you drag the servant here? If you don't speak, then let this servant dance. As she spoke, she used her other hand to tug at the sleeve tentatively. Unfortunately, Long Fei Yi pulled it very close and she could not move it at all. This time, the soldiers were even more suspicious and looked on with naughty smiles. It was rare to see His Highness making a move against a woman. Who wouldn't be excited? Seeing that she could not pull open the sleeve, the lead dancer simply leaned against the table and twisted her graceful body. Her other hand was still moving gracefully, and her legs were also changing their steps. She could actually lean against the table and dance, and her dance was very beautiful. However, under the beauty was a scene of seduction. The lead dancer's low-cut neckline couldn't hide anything at all. Moreover, she'd purposely pulled it down so that her chest was exposed to Long Fei's eyes. Her seductive breasts swayed with her movements, revealing everything to Long Fei. As she moved, she also tugged at Shui Xiu, looking like she wanted to change the subject. Your Highness, let me go. Your Highness, don't. Your Highness, I don't want. Hearing this coquettish voice, those who did not know the situation would really misunderstand that something unsightly had happened here. The soldiers were all restless. If not for Long Fei Yi and Bailey Yuanlong overseeing the scene, they would have already come to snatch her away. Although His Highness did not make a sound and his expression was grave and stern, he did not let go either. Many people guessed that this lead dancer had a chance. Perhaps His Highness would keep her in the army tonight to serve him. Originally, he had arranged for the song and dance hall to enter the army so that the soldiers could indulge themselves. After the song and dance, the chosen dancers could stay for the night. As the dance music gradually became more hurried, everyone could not help but become excited and nervous. They were waiting for His Highness to take this woman into his arms when the music reached its climax. However, Bailey Yuanlong and Bailey Mingxiang, father and daughter, both looked at the delicate guard behind His Highness at the same time. They saw that guard coldly narrowing his eyes and staring at His Highness's back. Long Fei Yi was sitting and Han Yunxi was standing. From Han Yunxi's angle, she could see the charming expression of the lead dancer's neckline even more clearly. She almost went up to cover Long Fei Yi's eyes, but in the end, she restrained herself because of her status and this place. That hateful Long Fei Yi, what was he trying to do? He had not taken the next step after pulling for so long. Could it be that he had not seen enough? Was this the good show he wanted her to watch? Clang clang, clang clang. The dance music was about to reach its climax, and the dancers began to dance faster and faster. The lead dancer glanced at the dancer standing in front of Bailey Mingxiang. She seemed a little hesitant, but she still resolutely untied her belt, took off her dance skirt and long sleeves, and broke free from Long Fei Yi's restraint. Under the dance skirt, she only wore a pair of trousers and a dudu. Her impressive figure immediately attracted everyone's attention. In an instant, everyone was stunned. Even Bailey Yuanlong was a little stunned. Unexpectedly, at this time, the tall dancer in front of Bailey Mingxiang suddenly threw her sleeve at Bailey Mingxiang. Bailey Mingxiang had been very vigilant and immediately leaned back. Who knew that a dark needle would suddenly fly out of her sleeve so quickly that no one saw it? Fortunately, Bailey Mingxiang reacted quickly. She shouted, "There's an assassin! There's an assassin among them!" As soon as she finished speaking, the dark needle flew past her cheek. Bailey Mingxiang stood up and drew her sword. The tall dancer didn't show any weakness and fought with her bare hands. Everyone thought that the dancer throwing her sleeve at Bailey Mingxiang was part of the dance. Seeing this, they were all shocked and panicked. They stood up one after another. Almost at the same time, except for the lead dancer, all the dancers were frightened. They screamed and ran around, and the scene suddenly went out of control. However, it only went out of control for a moment. When all the dancers fled to the side, the soldiers and a few shadow guard rushed over and surrounded the tall dancer, dealing with her together with Bailey Mingxiang. At this time, the lead dancer stood in front of Long Fei Yi, and Long Fei Yi didn't move at all. He just stared at her. Suddenly, Long Fei Yi stood up. The lead dancer's lips curled into a sneer. She grabbed the dance dress and used the water as a weapon to attack Long Fei Yi. Long Fei Yi leaned to the side and avoided the lead dancer's attack. "Your Highness, sword." Han Yunxi threw a sword over. "Your Highness, Miss Bailey can't hold on anymore." Long Fei Yi looked over and saw that the tall dancer was an expert. In just a short while, she had injured quite a few soldiers. If Bailey Mingxiang wasn't protected by the shadow guard, she would have already lost her life. Long Fei Yi caught the sword and pointed it at the lead dancer. "How long do you think you can trap this prince?" "That will depend on what your highness chooses." The lead dancer revealed an enchanting smile. "If it's here, it'll depend on your highness' skills. If it's on the bed, it'll depend on this servant's skills. Your highness, will you choose here or on the bed?" Was this provoking Long Fei Yi or teasing Long Fei Yi? This was simply seeking death. Han Yunxi was so angry that she almost used poison. If it wasn't for the fact that she was afraid of revealing her identity and letting the soldiers know that she was disguised as a guard and letting Bai Yanqing know that she was by Long Feiye's side, she would have already asked to work together with Long Feiye. Helplessly, she could only sulk. Provoking this prince is a very heavy crime. As soon as Long Feiye's voice fell, 10 sword-wielding shadow guard flew out from the side and surrounded the lead dancer. Long Feiye did not need to make a move against the lead dancer at all. He easily escaped and landed in front of Bailey Mingxiang. Seeing this, the tall dancer suddenly retreated. Using her body as a shield, she ignored the blades of the soldiers and retreated to where the large group of frightened dancers were. Ah! Ah! Save me! The assassin is here, save me! The dancers all screamed out and crazily ran around, running towards Bailey Mingxiang and Long Feiye. In the chaos, a green-clothed dancer suddenly pulled out her sword and unexpectedly stabbed at Bailey Mingxiang. Her speed was so fast that no one could react in time. Everyone was shocked. Even Bailey Mingxiang did not react for a while as he stood there in a daze. But, when the sword was about to pierce Bailey Mingxiang's heart, Long Feiye suddenly raised his leg and kicked her out. The green-clothed dancer flew out with her sword. She flew a long distance before falling to the ground and spitting out a mouthful of blood. The tall dancer had already been surrounded by a large number of archers lying in ambush nearby. The lead dancer was trapped by the 10 shadow guards. The rest of the innocent dancers were surrounded by soldiers lying in ambush nearby, unable to move about in a chaotic manner. The originally chaotic scene suddenly quieted down. The reason why it was chaotic before was because Long Feiye allowed it. If it was not chaotic, how could the person who really wanted to assassinate Bailey Mingxiang take action? If they did not catch the person who really wanted to assassinate Bailey Mingxiang and only caught the tall dancer and the lead dancer, there would be trouble in the future. Long Feiye did not look at these dancers again. Instead, he said coldly, "Put them all in the water dungeon. I will interrogate them tomorrow." Han Yunxi looked on from the side and was quite shocked. She never expected that there was another person besides the lead dancer and the tall dancer. If Long Feiye had not seen it with his sharp eyes, this green-clothed dancer would have found an opportunity to pounce on Bailey Mingxiang and kill him in a matter of minutes. When the participating soldiers saw the soldiers and shadow guard lying in ambush, they realized that His Highness had long known that there would be an assassin tonight. Long Fei and Bailey Mingxiang didn't tell the crowd because they wanted to make their act more convincing and make the scene more chaotic. Bailey Yuanlong hurriedly stepped forward and whispered, "Your Highness, are you not going to interrogate them tonight? Tonight is the Double Seventh Festival. We can't dampen the soldiers' mood. Take them away and let's continue." Long Feiye said loudly. "Your Highness is mighty." Everyone shouted in surprise. Long Feiye glanced at Han Yunxi and sat back down. Once he sat down, everyone else followed suit. Su Donglin immediately brought over clean water and knelt on one knee beside His Highness, holding the water with both hands. With His Highness's mysophobia, he would definitely wash his hands after touching the dancer's clothes. Long Feiye dipped his hand into the water and did not move for a long time. Su Donglin kept sending Han Yunxi meaningful looks, but Han Yunxi did not understand what he meant. Chapter 862. Long Feiye soaked his hands in the golden basin as he prepared to wash his hands. Everyone looked over. He hadn't moved his chopsticks or cups yet, so who would dare to eat, drink, or chat? Naturally, they all had to wait quietly for him to start eating. Only then would they dare to let loose and continue with the banquet. Under everyone's gaze, Long Feiye acted as if there was no one around as he patiently soaked his hands. Su Donglin was so anxious that he broke out in a cold sweat. He wasn't as calm as His Highness. If the princess didn't come over, he wouldn't be able to hold on. Han Yunshi really didn't understand what Su Donglin meant. If Long Fei Yi wanted to wash his hands, then wash his hands. What did it have to do with her? Su Donglin was a martial artist, so how could he not be able to hold that basin of water steadily? Or did he need her to go over and get a handkerchief for Long Fei Yi to use to wipe his hands? She was about to walk over when Su Donglin couldn't help but whisper, "Feiyun, what are you doing in a daze? Come over and serve me." Feiyun was the fake name Long Fei Yi gave Han Yunshi. She took the Fei character in his name and made it sound like Fei. She took the Yun character in her name and made it sound like Yun. Yes. Han Yunshi strode over and was about to take the handkerchief from Su Donglin's shoulder when Su Donglin whispered, "Wash your hands, wash your hands." Not only did Han Yunshi hear it, Long Fei Yi also heard it very clearly. He looked down at his hands. His entire person was very quiet, but the corner of his mouth hooked up in an extremely beautiful arc. Han Yunshi finally understood what was going on. She cursed in her heart. Long Fei Yi, this guy, really knew how to enjoy life. He needed two people to serve him just to wash his hands. One held the basin of water, and the other helped wash. What was the difference between this and those pampered masters in the palace? Very soon, Han Yunshi realized that she'd made a mistake. This fellow was a master of the imperial palace to begin with, not a brute on the battlefield. It was perfectly normal for two people to help him wash his hands. He had never been accustomed to being served by maidservants, so it was normal for her and Su Donglin to be served by two bodyguards. She was finally enlightened, so under everyone's watchful eyes, she calmly leaned over and reached her slender hand into the cold water, carefully holding his large hand. As soon as she touched it, she didn't know why, but her heart inexplicably skipped a beat. There was an indescribable feeling in her heart. They were obviously very intimate, but why did their hearts race when they held hands? She inadvertently raised her head and met his deep black eyes. He had a faint smile on his face, as gentle as the water in each other's hands. She also smiled and quickly lowered her head, afraid that she would be exposed. Under the watchful eyes of so many people, he had to restrain himself. Who knew that the moment she lowered her head, his 10 fingers would latch onto hers, refusing to let go. She was shocked and struggled slightly, but he refused to let go. Fortunately, the golden basin was deep enough. Otherwise, everyone present would have seen it. This guy, he was really too much. Su Donglin had seen everything. He also felt that His Highness really knew how to play. Enough. Everyone in the audience was watching and waiting. If this continued, there was no way they wouldn't be exposed. Bailey Yuanlong and Bailey Mingxiang had long known that Yunfei was Han Yunshi. The father and daughter were both watching. Bailey Yuanlong couldn't hide his anger. His Highness was simply fooling around. If he wanted to be good to this woman, he couldn't stop him, nor would he bother to stop him. However, he couldn't play around like this in public. However, Bailey Mingxiang bitterly lowered her head. She knew that His Highness wasn't an extremely licentious person. Just now, the soldiers had kicked up a fuss between her and His Highness, which must have caused His Highness to be dissatisfied. His Highness had done this to warn her father to watch his subordinates' mouths. In fact, the soldiers only dared to kick up a fuss because they had her father's permission. Otherwise, who would dare to use this kind of thing to kick up a fuss? His Highness was also stupid. It could be seen with a single glance. Ever since the princess' identity was exposed, she had always been by His Highness' side. Her father began to have thoughts of wanting her to stay by His Highness' side. This is truly outrageous. It's fine if His Highness is fooling around, but she actually doesn't know how to restrain herself. This is my Enchanting camp. Bailey Yuanlong couldn't help cursing in a low voice. Father. Bailey Mingxiang grabbed his hand in shock. Fortunately, the tables on the left and right were long and people were sitting far away, so they didn't hear anything. Bailey Yuanlong glared at her. You should at least learn from her. Bailey Mingxiang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Her father had probably gone crazy from His Highness' torment. He scolded the princess while also wanting her to learn from her. What could she learn from the princess? She could learn how to dress, she could learn how to detoxify poison, but there were some things that could never be learned. They were innate. Bailey Mingxiang said in a low voice, Father, His Highness only wants the princess. The princess is your daughter's savior. Your daughter, so what? When the two sides fight in the future, my East Qin will definitely wipe out all of her Western Qin allies. Even if His Highness keeps her, she will at most be given the position of imperial concubine. It's impossible for her to have a future. It wasn't unprecedented for an enemy country's princess to be an imperial concubine. It was just that she was only an imperial concubine in name, but in reality, she was just a prisoner of war used to humiliate the enemy country. Even if His Highness only wanted her and didn't intend to humiliate her, he absolutely couldn't make her the empress. The empress was the mother of the country, the main wife, the mother of the world. She absolutely couldn't be stained. In Bailey Yuanlong's eyes, there were no feelings between men and women, no true feelings, and no mutual affection. There was only the equality of status, the matching of qualifications and titles. His daughter was much more qualified than Han Yunxi. Unable to refute her father, Bailey Mingxiang lowered her head and didn't say anything else. At this time, Su Donglin finally couldn't take it anymore. He reminded in a low voice, Your Highness, the good wine you ordered has been delivered. Long Fei Yi immediately let go. Han Yunxi let out a sigh of relief and secretly glanced at him. She took a handkerchief and placed it in his hand, then immediately took a step back. There was no way she was going to help him wipe it. Long Fei Yi didn't make things difficult for him. After wiping it twice, he threw the handkerchief into the basin and indicated for Su Donglin to withdraw. Go bring up the good wine this crown prince has prepared. Today, this crown prince will properly reward the soldiers. Everyone, no one will go home until they're drunk. Bailey Yuanlong finally spat out the stuffy breath in his heart. He stood up, picked up the wine, and loudly declared, This general has already made the necessary arrangements for tonight's defense. Everyone, this is the first time His Highness has personally come to the military camp. Everyone, drink to your heart's content. This general won't forgive anyone who spoils His Highness' mood. After he finished speaking, he downed the wine in his cup and fiercely smashed it to the ground. Drink, no one will go home until they're drunk. Following that, there was a bang as the wine cup shattered. Everyone cheered. After the good wine was delivered, it wasn't long before everyone was toasting each other. It was a lively scene. Long Fei Yi, who rarely drank, was in a good mood. After a while, he drank several cups with the deputy generals who came forward to propose a toast. Several cooks cooked delicacies over the bonfire and respectfully presented them to Long Fei Yi. Long Fei Yi waved his hand, indicating for the soldiers to divide the delicacies. There was a crispy fat lamb, a roasted pig that was crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, and delicious game. Everyone was overjoyed. Long Fei Yi called over a cook and instructed, divide the fat lamb. The brothers on night watch have worked hard. When everyone heard this, they all praised. His Highness looked high and mighty, but he was still very close to the people. The cook cut up the roasted fat lamb. Deputy General Zhao picked the most delicious leg meat and delivered the first portion to Su Donglin. Grandfather Su, the Shadow Guard regiment has worked hard these days. Su Donglin was His Highness' favorite. Who wouldn't want to curry favor with him? Su Donglin naturally accepted it. He picked out the best portion and handed it to Han Yunshi, saying seriously, "Here, this is His Highness's reward." Han Yunshi was His Highness' only woman. How could Su Donglin not curry favor with her? Just like that, Han Yunshi received Long Fei Ye's reward. She received the most tender delicacies. Long Fei Ye looked back at her with a smile. He was very satisfied. After everyone had eaten their fill and drank a few rounds, someone suggested a sword dance. There were no dancers or singers to liven things up, so Bailey Yuanlong was the first to draw his sword and perform a sword dance. A few soldiers immediately ordered someone to bring over bells, drums, and bells. They played a passionate melody to accompany Bailey Yuanlong. Soon, a few deputy generals joined Bailey Yuanlong. Their dance was magnificent and beautiful. Long Fei Yi was excited. He also stood up and drew his sword. Han Yunshi watched and couldn't help but become excited. She thought of a poem, "Drunk, I look at the sword under the lamp. In my dream, I blow the horn and link the barracks. 800 li of soldiers under my command, 50 bowstrings fluttering beyond the Great Wall. Soldiers on the battlefield in autumn." The liveliness of the main camp affected the surroundings. The entire barracks was as bright as day, bustling with noise and excitement. The banquet didn't end until late at night. Everyone was drunk, especially Bailey Yuanlong, who was dead drunk. After so many years, this was the first time he had indulged himself. Bailey Mingxiang supported his father as he responded. He couldn't help but look back, only to see that His Highness, who had drunk several jars of wine, wasn't drunk at all. He was walking toward the main camp with Su Donglin and Fei Yun following behind him. Bailey Mingxiang should have left, but in the end, he couldn't control himself and stopped in place. After His Highness and the others arrived at the main camp, Su Donglin waited at the door while Fei Yun followed in. It wasn't until he saw this scene that Bailey Mingxiang turned back and silently continued to support his father as they left. In the dark night, she silently left a trail of bitter tears. No one could see it clearly. "Your Highness, Mingxiang really likes you." But Mingxiang can't, dare not. Han Yunshi followed Long Fei Yi back to the main camp. She was immediately awed by the luxurious and domineering atmosphere of the main camp. Just the complete tiger pelt on Long Fei Yi's chair alone was worth a lot. The main camp was the same as her own, divided into an inner and outer room. The inner room was Long Fei Yi's bedroom, while the outer room was where they discussed official business. The difference was that the outer room alone was comparable to her tent. Long Fei Yi lazily sat down on a short couch and sized up Han Yunshi's appearance in men's clothing. He hadn't had a chance to properly look at her appearance today. Han Yunshi ignored him. She had nothing to do tonight, so she was counting his wine. There were 8 jars in total. Drinking like this was too harmful to the body. The best remedy was warm water. Large amounts of water could expel the alcohol from the body. Han Yunshi hurriedly absorbed the water and prepared to pour Long Fei Yi some. Unexpectedly, just as she reached the basin, Long Fei Yi came over and hugged her from behind. Her hand had just touched the water when his large hand pressed down and pressed her small hand to the bottom of the basin. "Stop fooling around. I'll pour you some water. You drank too much tonight." Han Yunshi was very serious. Long Fei Yi didn't answer her. He took her small hand and very carefully washed her fingers one by one. He whispered, "Do you think I'm drunk?" Chapter 863. People who were too smart would always have a lot of troubles, just like Han Yunshi. Long Fei Yi obviously wasn't drunk. She could have just answered him, "I'm not drunk," but she was conflicted. What did he mean by asking this? He must have a special meaning. Otherwise, wouldn't it be nonsense for him to ask this since he knew that she wasn't drunk? Since he had other meanings, she couldn't answer casually. Otherwise, she would definitely fall into his trap. Han Yunxi remained silent. Long Fei Yi waited patiently and continued to wash her hands. Unlike her previous perfunctory actions, he helped her wash her hands especially seriously and meticulously. He washed her 10 fingers one by one, not even letting go of the gaps between her fingers. He gently rubbed them as if he was giving her a massage. It was especially comfortable. After that, he rubbed circles on her palms and gently rubbed them. Her hands weren't dirty, so why did she need to be so meticulous? How was he absorbing? He was clearly massaging and serving her. Han Yunxi originally hated needing someone to serve her for such a small matter, but after being served, she realized how comfortable it was. She relaxed her hands and her body gradually relaxed as well. She wished that Long Fei Yi would never stop. It seemed like it was extremely necessary to keep a servant girl by her side to serve her. Why was she so silly before? Han Yunxi felt that she was spoiled by Long Fei Yi again. He helped her wipe her hands clean before wrapping his arms around her waist. His tone was still indifferent as before. Do you think I'm drunk? Han Yunxi turned around and raised one finger. How much is this? 1. Long Fei Yi answered honestly. Han Yunxi raised another finger. How much is this? 2. Long Fei Yi answered again. Then how much is 1 plus 1? Han Yunxi said as she raised 3 fingers. Long Fei Yi didn't react for a moment. He looked at her fingers and said, 3. Han Yunxi immediately burst out laughing. This little trick was used to fool people. It worked every time. Long Fei Yi actually fell for it. 1 plus 1 equals 3. You're drunk. Han Yunxi laughed loudly. Long Fei Yi shook his head helplessly. He was so gullible and defenseless against her. I'm not drunk, he said seriously. He's obviously drunk. Han Yunxi quibbled. Although she did have the slightest bit of desire to see how this fellow looked when he was really drunk. How many jars of wine would it take to make him drunk? Good. Are you drunk? Abruptly, Long Fei picked her up in his arms and turned to enter the rooms. Han Yunxi panicked. She was just joking with him. She had some business to discuss with him. If they didn't talk about it in detail tonight, who knew when it would be? Long Fei Yi, I have something to discuss with you. This prince is drunk, we can't talk. Long Fei Yi replied. You're clearly not drunk. Han Yunxi panicked. Long Fei Yi, can you be a bit more serious? Before she could finish speaking, he passed through the curtain and carried her into the inner room. In that instant, she was shocked, and all the words she was about to say stopped in her mouth. She saw that the room was filled with sunflowers that shined in a golden light. The entire floor was covered with palm-sized sunflowers. On the table and on the cupboard, there were several large vases with large pots of flowers in them. They were in full bloom. Beside the large tatami mats, there were 2 large vases that fell to the ground. There were only 2 or 3 stalks in them, but these 2 or 3 stalks were especially large. The flower plates were as large as pots, so beautiful that it didn't seem like something from this world. Han Yunxi's favorite flower was sunflowers. When did Long Fei Yi find out? She had never seen such a large sunflower before and had never seen such a beautiful sunflower bloom at night. Long Fei Yi was he giving her flowers? He gave her a sea of flowers before and now he was giving her a flower room. Han Yunxi had already forgotten that she was the one who taught Tang Li this method. Seeing the room filled with this brilliance, she was so moved that she didn't know what to say. Do you like it? Long Fei Yi was standing behind her. Han Yunqi turned around and suddenly stood on her tiptoes with a scream. She placed a heavy kiss on his handsome face. I like it. Long Fei Yi was easily satisfied as he gave a loud laugh. It's good that you like it. He took out a small, round brocade box from his sleeve and handed it to Han Yunqi. Han Yunqi opened it and saw that there was a ring inside. The holder of the ring was none other than a very small sunflower. Although it was small, it was extremely exquisite and lifelike. The color and petals were handled to perfection. At first glance, one would think that it was a real sunflower. Han Yunqi was marveling at the thought behind this gift when Long Fei Ye's words almost made her heart stop beating. He said, Han Yunqi, no matter what happens in the future, as long as you and I are both alive, will you marry me again? How could there be such a person? How could there be such a person? Marry him again. Who would marry their husband again after getting married? Only the two of them would do that. Han Yunqi looked at Long Fei Yi and pursed her lips tightly. She was filled with emotions and didn't know what to say. After a while, she muttered, Long Fei Yi, are you really not drunk? Are you marrying me or not? Long Fei Yi asked again. She didn't know if he was anxious, but there was a hint of warning in his tone. If you don't help me put it on, I won't marry you. Han Yunqi smiled as she talked about her conditions. Unexpectedly, Long Fei Yi didn't agree. Keep it well. If you and I are both alive, I'll help you put it on. Han Yunqi's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't been in the army for long, less than half a month, but she had been too happy. If he hadn't reminded her, she would have almost forgotten that they would meet on the battlefield one day. Okay, I promise you. She answered seriously as she put away the proposal ring. On the night of Chinese Valentine's Day, her husband, her man, who was also her old enemy, proposed to her with a promise of life and death. Bailey Yuanlong knows about it, she asked. He pulled her to sit on the couch and hugged her as he leaned against the armrest. He was very well behaved and didn't do anything other than hug her. What do you think about the matter of them making a fuss? Han Yunqi was stunned at first, but she immediately understood. Those soldiers had made a fuss just now, wanting to push Bailey Mingxiang to Long Fei Yi. Of course she had heard it, but she didn't care too much. Firstly, those soldiers didn't know the truth that Bailey Mingxiang was by Long Fei Ye's side, so they would naturally make a fuss. Secondly, it would be strange if Bailey Mingxiang didn't like Long Fei Yi. Who could resist such a man? Thinking back to when she was disliked by him, she wasn't willing to be abused. She would always be infatuated whenever she saw him. Not to mention Bailey Mingxiang, even a random servant girl from the Duke of Qin's estate liked Long Fei Yi to the point of hovering between life and death. She wasn't that petty. Bailey Mingxiang was different from Duan Muyao. She had never done anything that crossed the line and had always been well behaved. She could persuade Bailey Mingxiang to leave and not let herself suffer as a servant girl, but she couldn't chase her away just because of Bailey Mingxiang's love for Long Fei Yi. Everyone had the right to their own little thoughts and secrets. If she exposed Bailey Mingxiang's carefully hidden love, what was the difference between that and humiliating her? Of course, if Bailey Mingxiang did something that crossed the line one day and exceeded the level of love, she wouldn't be polite or soft-hearted. Han Yunqi raised her brows and looked at Long Fei Yi. She smiled and said, Long Fei Yi, what do you want me to think? Long Fei Yi knitted his brows and looked at her for a long time. He didn't say anything and directly pushed her down and tickled her. You woman. He was hoping that she would mind. He was looking forward to seeing her jealous face. Instead, she was laughing at him. Han Yunqi was afraid of tickles. No. I was wrong. I'm angry, okay. After saying this, she couldn't help but laugh loudly. Long Fei Yi, you're too childish. When she said this, Long Fei Ye's hand suddenly stopped. Han Yunqi also stopped laughing and stopped struggling. She looked at him suspiciously. She saw that his face had become especially serious and couldn't be associated with childish at all. She seemed to have said something wrong. He didn't say a word and just stared at her. She pursed her lips and pushed him carefully, but didn't manage to push him away. She pursed her lips and said timidly, Long Fei Yi, I'm really angry and jealous. She hadn't even laughed, but he couldn't help but laugh out loud. No matter how fierce he was, she wouldn't be afraid. She was the only one who dared to pluck the fur from a tiger's head. As he laughed, he moved closer and gradually became gentler as he kissed her. If he wanted to subdue her, this was the only way. However, this time, Han Yunqi pushed him away forcefully and asked seriously, Long Fei Yi, is the lead dancer pretty? Long Fei Yi laughed but didn't say a word. You've been looking at her for so long. Are you done? Han Yunqi asked again. Long Fei Yi was still laughing. Han Yunqi pinched him. Tell me. Is she pretty? Han Yunqi felt goosebumps all over her body at the thought of the lead dancer's revealing appearance. She thought of what Long Fei Yi had seen. She felt uncomfortable. She minded. Tell me. She was really angry now. I'm not sure. Long Fei Yi answered truthfully. Before Han Yunqi could ask further, he said, I'm really not sure. I've been staring at the green dancer. Her martial arts are the best. Really? Han Yunqi was actually convinced. Long Fei Yi was probably the only one who had realized that the green dancer was the one who wanted to attack Bailey Mingxiang. She wanted to ask more, but Long Fei Yi suddenly said in a low voice, she's definitely not as pretty as you. After saying that, he lowered his head. Han Yunqi's hands were restrained and she couldn't resist at all. Before Han Yunqi was about to lose consciousness, she thought of a question. Did she love Long Fei Yi more, or did Long Fei Yi love her more? Before she could answer, she was already intoxicated by his rough strength and was brought into waves of unbearable pleasure by him. When Han Yunqi woke up, she was already lying on the tatami mats. The lights in the tent were still lit. She didn't know what time it was and whether it was dawn yet. Long Fei Yi was sleeping beside her with one arm wrapped around her. When she got up, he immediately pressed her back down. He turned over and hugged her. Sleep, be good, she obediently snuggled back. How could she be sleepy? When she saw the messy clothes on the floor, she secretly looked under the silk quilt. She couldn't help blushing and laughing. Just like that, Han Yunqi nestled in Long Fei Ye's arms and waited for him to wake up. She touched his tall nose and his long eyelashes from time to time. When would this guy wake up? She had something important to ask him. Chapter 864. Han Yunqi wanted to wake Long Fei Yi up, but she couldn't bear to do so. She wanted him to rest a little longer, and she also wanted to sleep on the same bed with him like this, quietly cuddling with each other for a while. After being married for so many years, even though she had become one with him many times, she had never felt like sleeping on the same bed. But this time, when she woke up happily, he was lying beside her, hugging her. She finally felt like his woman, his wife. The happiest thing was to be able to see his peaceful sleeping face every morning when she opened her eyes. Just as Han Yunqi's fingertips brushed against his lips, Long Fei Yi finally woke up. He opened his eyes lazily, looked at her, and sucked on her finger. She frowned, and he let go. Not tired? He asked. Before she could answer, he immediately flipped over. She said anxiously, Long Fei Yi, I have something to ask you. What's going on with dual cultivation? How do you cultivate it? You used Bailey Mingxiang to lure Bai Yanqing out. Is it reliable? Dual cultivation. Long Fei Yi muttered to himself and suddenly laughed. He said, to combine the lustbite power and my original internal energy into one and reach the invincible realm, I have to rely on the assistance of a martial arts genius. It can only be achieved through dual cultivation. Dual cultivation means cultivating together at the same time, cultivating both the body and the mind. Dual cultivation not only requires two people to be able to combine their martial arts into one, but they also need to have a tacit understanding in their minds. Then does your martial arts have to be equally powerful, so that you can cultivate at the same time and combine them into one? Han Yunxi asked seriously. Think about it, Long Fei Ye's martial arts were already so powerful. If another person of the same level were to join forces with Long Fei Yi, who in the world would be able to fight against them? Long Fei Yi nodded. Yes. Can you find someone like that? Han Yunxi's face was full of suspicion, but she did not dwell on this question. She was more concerned about another question. She asked seriously, cultivating the hearts have a tacit understanding. How do you cultivate this? It's the same as cultivating the body. You must first have a tacit understanding of each other before you can cultivate together and achieve true telepathy, Long Fei Yi replied. Han Yunxi was anxious. Long Fei Yi, is the person doing the dual cultivation a man or a woman? If it were a man, it wouldn't be a big deal to have a telepathic connection with Long Fei Yi. After all, a close friend can have a telepathic connection. As for a woman, Han Yunxi will cry. A woman, Long Fei Yi answered honestly. Han Yunxi raised her eyebrows and looked at him. After a while, she asked resentfully, have you found him? Unexpectedly, Long Fei Yi actually replied with a serious face, yes, I found it a long time ago. Han Yunxi pushed him away and sat up. She didn't say anything and just glared at him. However, Long Fei Yi wasn't joking with her. He said seriously, a junior sister from Tianshan Kenzhou. She's very talented and far surpasses me and Duan Muyao. Because the lustbite power isn't an absolute secret, people like Bai Yanqing are very familiar with it. That's why that junior sister is still hidden by you. Are you hiding a mistress in a golden house? Han Yunxi interrupted Long Fei Yi coldly. Not only was she angered by Long Fei Ye's words, but she was also angered by his serious attitude. His expression and tone didn't seem like he was joking at all. He was serious. Unexpectedly, Long Fei Yi still answered honestly, until now. No one knows. Han Yunxi sucked in a cold breath and was completely enraged. Which junior sister? What's her name? You've really hidden it well. When did you have a telepathic connection with her? How did you have a telepathic connection with her? How do you have a telepathic connection with her? How do you plan to dual cultivate with her? How do you have a telepathic connection with her? She was completely enraged. A telepathic connection between a man and a woman had to be a couple. They had to be very loving and truly in love with each other for their telepathic connection to be able to have a telepathic connection. After all, there were many people who slept in the same bed but dreamed different dreams. As for a pure friendship between a man and a woman, who was he trying to fool? Junior sister again. She was really disgusted with the word junior sister. Long Fei Yi hesitated to answer. Han Yunxi stared at him and waited without saying anything. Only time passed between the two of them. However, in the end, Han Yunxi was defeated. Long Fei Yi, are you going to answer me? Long Fei Yi didn't say anything. Just as he was about to hold her hand, Han Yunxi avoided him. Long Fei Yi, sometimes I can't read your thoughts. I think we're not telepathic enough. Her heart was full. She obviously had a lot to say, but after trying for a long time, she couldn't say anything and didn't want to say anything. She wrapped herself in the silk blanket and got off the bed. She only said 2 words to him, goodbye. Long Fei Yi looked at her lonely and thin back view and suddenly chuckled. Other than helplessness, there was only helplessness. Han Yunxi, he called out to her. She ignored him and put on her clothes. He took out his clothes and casually wrapped them around his lower body. When he stood up, his legs looked even more slender and refined. They were full of strength and made one's imagination run wild. He strode to her side and wrapped an arm around her waist domineeringly. Han Yunxi, is this how you act when you're jealous? Aren't you too ruthless? Let go. Han Yunxi was really angry. Who wouldn't be angry? Goodbye. Long Fei Yi smiled helplessly. Where are you going? It's none of your business. Han Yunxi said cold. She had her head bowed, so Long Fei Yi couldn't see her face. You're really jealous? Long Fei Yi asked again. He pressed his hands against her shoulders, wanting her to turn around so she could look at him. But Han Yunxi fiercely broke free of him and raged, "Don't touch me." Her voice was clearly choked with sobs. Long Fei Yi never expected things to turn out like this. He panicked and quickly grabbed her hand. Yunxi, listen to my explanation. Han Yunxi still fiercely broke free. Long Fei Yi didn't know where she got her strength from, but she managed to break free of his grip. There's no way to explain things like this. She raised her head to look at him. Her eyes were already red and filled with tears. Long Fei Yi was about to explain when he gave a start. Long Fei Yi, you lied to me again. Just how many more things have you lied to me? You liar. Don't you know how much I like you? Don't you know how long I've secretly liked you? Don't you know how hard I worked to walk those 100 steps? Han Yunxi raged. Don't you know that even when I'm with you, I feel like you're so far away from me? I don't know why, I don't know how many steps there are between us. Now I know, I understand. So it's not me who has a telepathic connection with you. It's not me. I'll never be able to walk those 100 steps, Long Fei Yi. It's already finished. Long Fei Yi hastily cut her off. Han Yunxi snorted disdainfully and laughed coldly. It's never finished. But we've already started dual cultivation, idiot, we've already started that night after the warm soup. Long Fei Yi looked at her tear-streaked face. He wanted to feel heartache, but he also wanted to laugh. He only wanted to tease her and reminisce about the taste of her vinegar pastries. Who knew that her reaction would be so big? Han Yunxi was stunned. Long Fei Yi was not in a hurry to explain. He wiped her tears lovingly. He chuckled. Even his laughter was filled with heartache. Han Yunxi, you're so stupid and so ruthless. How would I dare to lie to you in the future? Han Yunxi looked at him in a daze. She suddenly avoided his hand and carelessly wiped away her tears. Long Fei Yi, what did you just say? What do you mean? Long Fei Yi looked at her tear-filled pear blossom, anxious and shocked little face. He could not help but laugh out loud. You're quite cute like this. Long Fei Yi. Han Yunxi was completely anxious. This guy just said that they had already started dual cultivation. What was going on? Were you jealous just now? Long Fei Yi asked stubbornly. Yes. Han Yunxi admitted generously. Long Fei Yi, you're lying. You're bullying me. You bastard. Han Yunxi's mood since last night was like riding a roller coaster. Now, she did not know what was going on with dual cultivation. She only knew that he had tricked her again. She only knew that the little junior sister was a lie. She also did not know what was going on. She really wanted to cry. I do care, I like it. But you can't rely on me liking you to lie to me and bully me like this. Long Fei Yi, how can you be so despicable? Get lost. Get lost. Long Fei Yi did not get lost. Instead, he hugged her. He was satisfied, but his heart ached. Ever since the soldiers started to kick up a fuss, he had turned around a few times to see her indifferent look. He was unhappy until now and had to force her to show her attitude. Now, he was satisfied. But his heart ached incomparably. He did not know how to coax her. Was he torturing her, or was he torturing himself? Torturing and tormenting each other was also because of love. Han Yunxi did not reject Long Fei Ye's embrace. There was no need for her to ask any more questions. Long Fei Yi obediently explained everything to her. It turned out that when Tang Li gave her the hidden weapon, he had already discovered her martial arts talent. It far surpassed his and Duanmu Yao's and could be said to be the best in Cloud Realm Continent's martial arts world. She was the person he and his master had been searching for to dual cultivate with. He had always hidden it from her and even lied to her that she was trash because he did not want her to learn martial arts. Once she learned martial arts, her martial arts talent would be exposed. At that time, he was still on guard against her and naturally would not tell her the truth. Later, in order to hide the lustbite energy and his identity as the East Qin Crown Prince, he did not tell her the whole story. Just like that, the matter had been hidden until now. When the mystery of his identity was solved and their misunderstanding was resolved, he began to dual cultivate. The results were very successful, but he did not have a chance to sit down and properly explain the matter to her these past few days. Today, even if she did not ask, he was going to tell her anyway. There were countless types of dual cultivation in the world. Dual cultivation with the lustbite energy was actually a dual cultivation between lovers. One had to first cultivate their hearts and minds. Only after their hearts and minds were connected could one begin to cultivate their body and martial arts. After making love in the warm pool, he had tried to transfer his internal energy to her while she was unconscious, helping her open several major acupuncture points. It was because their hearts and minds were connected that her body did not reject the lustbite energy and nirvana energy. Instead, these two energies were strengthened in her body. If Han Yunxi knew martial arts, she would have discovered that she had at least 20% of her internal energy by now. In a sense, Han Yunxi had also learned Celestial Mountain's internal energy and could be considered to be from the same sect as him. As long as Han Yunxi cultivated her internal energy to 100%, she could officially begin cultivating her body and martial arts with him. Long Fei Yi had even hidden this matter from old Kenzo. He wanted to keep his own identity a secret and protect Han Yunxi. Even a shrewd fox like Bai Yanqing would never guess that a useless trash like Han Yunxi who didn't know any martial arts was actually Cloud Realm Continent's greatest martial arts talent. After hearing the explanation, Han Yunxi looked at Long Fei Yi before exploding with rage. Long Fei Yi, you big liar. Don't lie to me like this. Chapter 865. How could Han Yunxi not break down? All these years, she'd been convinced that she was trash at martial arts and even felt depressed about it. She never thought that she was actually the most talented person in Cloud Realm Continent. She'd been thoroughly tricked. Only Long Fei Yi could trick her like this. If anyone else said she was trash at martial arts, she might doubt them, but Long Fei Yi, Han Yunxi was so angry that her face turned white. She couldn't even speak properly. Long Fei Yi. Long Fei Yi, why you? Long Fei Yi, do you know how long I've been depressed because I don't know martial arts? She'd been the one to drag him down multiple times. How she wished she knew martial arts. As punishment, I'll teach you internal energy. Once your internal energy reaches the same level as mine, we'll begin dual cultivation. Long Fei Yi said as he took out a secret manual from a cabinet and handed it to Han Yunxi. Han Yunxi opened it and saw that it was a manual on a writing board. She didn't know how to read secret manuals, but based on the drawings, she could tell that it was a hidden weapon technique. She carefully flipped through it from the beginning and discovered that it was indeed a hidden weapon technique. It taught people how to use their internal energy and special techniques to use hidden weapons like needles. I spent 2 years creating a poison needle hidden weapon suitable for you. Starting tomorrow night, I'll teach you for 2 hours every night. As long as you have good moves and eyesight, you'll be able to kill your enemy with a single needle as soon as your internal energy improves. Once our dual cultivation succeeds, the power of your needles will be no less than the pear blossom rain needles, Long Fei Yi said seriously. Han Yunxi stared at him and suddenly fell silent. Long Fei Yi knew how much she wanted to learn martial arts. He thought that she'd calm down after seeing this tailor-made secret manual, but she remained silent instead. A complicated look flitted past his eyes before he said, I won't lie to you anymore, really. I only have one last secret left, and I'll tell you that too. Han Yunxi, if I cultivate the 3rd stage of the lustbite power, I will be invincible. In this world, only you can kill me. The power of the lustbite fears emotions. If you point your sword at me, I will lose my inner strength. Even though they would meet on the battlefield in the future, he still revealed this secret. Han Yunxi, are the 100 steps between the two of you considered complete? Actually, if he could, he didn't want to lie to her like this. Who would want to carry this lie and live so tirelessly? It was the most difficult thing to keep a secret alone. No one knew how much patience, forbearance, and persistence he had for this woman in the past 4 years. Yunxi, Long Fei Yi was about to speak when Han Yunxi covered his mouth. Only you can deceive me like this. Long Fei Yi, I admit defeat. There will be a day when we meet on the battlefield, but there will never be a day when we face each other with swords. Is that okay? Meeting on the battlefield was Eastern and Western Qin's business. Facing each other with swords was their own business. Long Fei Yi stroked her bangs. Definitely. He once said that deceiving her once was equivalent to deceiving her 100 times. But even if he deceived her 100 times, she wouldn't be able to blame or hate him. The secret manual in her hands that he had drawn step by step reflected the goodwill of his deceit over the years. If not for his deceit, the two of them might not have reached this stage today. She wouldn't have been able to survive until now either. When she thought back to the days when she traveled everywhere with him and fought by his side, she didn't know or think about anything. It had been so easy and worry-free. If he could do as he planned and hide her identity forever, then she wouldn't have to feel guilty and responsible towards Western Qin anymore. Han Yunxi didn't blame Long Fei Yi at all. She only felt heartache that he had to shoulder everything all by himself these past few years. Long Fei Yi, what will happen to you if you pass on your internal energy to me? Han Yunxi asked seriously. 10% each time. I'll recover, don't worry. Long Fei Yi had a sense of propriety. Han Yunxi exhaled in relief and smiled helplessly. Bai Yanqing definitely won't expect me to be the person he's looking for. Long Fei Yi's eyes flashed coldly. It's a pity that he didn't come in person last night. Otherwise, everything would be over. Won't Bailey Mingxiang be in danger if you keep her by your side? Han Yunxi asked seriously. She's the best candidate. Long Fei Yi had chosen Bailey Mingxiang after careful consideration. Bailey Mingxiang was a woman from the mermaid clan. Although she hadn't served by his side in the past, she had long entered the Duke of Qin's estate as a servant girl. Back then, this had caused quite a stir in Tianning's capital city. With Bai Yanqing's paranoia and cautiousness, he'd definitely find out about this. If he created a false impression that Bailey Mingxiang was favored, Bai Yanqing would be more suspicious. Because of this, Bai Yanqing would suspect Bailey Mingxiang even more. She's a daughter of the mermaid clan. It's her honor to die for the sake of East Qin, Long Feiyi said. It had to be said that Han Yunxi was soft-hearted towards the people by her side. She wasn't as ruthless as Long Feiyi because she didn't have many people by her side to begin with. She smiled. It wasn't easy for me to save her life, but now I'm going to die for your East Qin. She has something in her hands that can deal with Bai Yanqing. As long as Bai Yanqing doesn't use poison, she'll be able to subdue Bai Yanqing. Whether or not she survives depends on her life, Long Feiyi said mildly. What is it? Han Yunxi was curious. She scooted over and Long Feiyi told her in a low voice. Heavens! Han Yunxi was very surprised. She figured that Bailey Mingxiang would be following them for the next few days. With her around, they wouldn't have to worry about Bai Yanqing using poison. If Bailey Mingxiang could make good use of the thing in her hands, she'd not only be fine, she'd even be able to perform meritorious service. Long Feiyi, if Bailey Mingxiang performs meritorious service, you'll have to give her a military rank. Don't let her be a maid anymore. Han Yunxi's words were very pleasant to hear. Long Feiyi's face didn't look as bad as before and he was very satisfied. Long Fei, can you tell me about your childhood? How did your parents pass away? Han Yunxi asked in a serious voice. She knew so many things today, but she still felt that it wasn't enough. It's all in the past. Long Feiyi said while helping her tidy up her hair. He pulled her hair behind her back and gently arranged it. It's fine if you don't mention it. I only have you now. Long Feiyi. Han Yunxi still wanted to know. Be good. It's all in the past. I'll tell you slowly when I have time. Long Feiyi still didn't say anything. Happiness could be shared, but some pain couldn't be shared. Because once some pain was shared, it would become two parts. Those things in the past had already been buried under the ground with the people who had passed away. No one could change it or smooth it over. The more people who knew, the more pain he would feel. He didn't want this woman to know about his scarred past. He didn't want her to know about it. Han Yunxi didn't force Long Feiyi to say anything. She couldn't participate in his past, but she must participate in his present and future. At dawn, Su Donglin and Zhao Mama brought breakfast over. Your Highness, it's time to eat. We still have to interrogate those dancers in the morning. Long Feiyi and Han Yunxi tidied up their clothes. Han Yunxi was still dressed as a guard. Su Donglin glanced at her and snickered. The princess was definitely the closest person to His Highness in the history of the Shadow Guard Regiment. Although he was laughing, he still felt sad when he thought of his boss Chu. He didn't know how boss Chu was doing now. If he knew that His Highness and the princess were together, would boss Chu be able to accept it? Long Feiyi and Han Yunxi sat together to eat. Su Donglin and Zhao Mama stood guard outside. Oh right, I wrote a letter to Gu. He has the right to know. Han Yunxi said seriously. Long Feiyi only smiled cold and didn't say anything. His attitude towards Gu was like this. Gu should have received the letter in a few days. Han Yunxi said. Long Feiyi didn't say anything. Gu wanted to enter his barracks. Impossible. The two of them had agreed that Gu would hide the matter of Mute Granny and he would hide the secret of Gu's immortal body. Since they had made a contract, they couldn't go against it no matter what. Gu actually told Han Yunxi the truth. Fortunately, he had a chance to explain it to Han Yunxi. Otherwise, he definitely wouldn't let Gu off. Han Yunxi knew that it was useless to mention Gu in front of Long Feiyi. Long Feiyi finished his breakfast in silence. Then, he said lightly, "I still can't contact Gu Beiyue. Do you have a way to find the little thing? I want to know Gu Beiyue's choice." If Long Feiyi had any friends, Gu Beiyue was one of them. Although he had his guesses, he still wanted to know what Gu Beiyue's opinion was and what choice he would make. Han Yunxi shook her head helplessly. "I'm afraid it's in Bai Yanqing's hands." The last time Gu Beiyue asked Chu Tianyin to send a secret letter to Long Feiyi, it didn't mention anything about the little thing. This can only mean that he hasn't seen the little thing. If the little thing isn't with Gu Beiyue, it could only be trapped in Bai Yanqing's poison storage space. It had been a long time since they'd last seen each other. Long Feiyi nodded. "Let's go to the water prison." Long Feiyi always had a lead in his hands that could lead him to Bai Yanqing. However, since he had the dancers as spies, he naturally had to interrogate them. Perhaps there would be some new information. Han Yunxi followed Long Feiyi out of the tent and discovered that it had rained last night. It was said that it would definitely rain on Qixi. Those were the tears of the weavers. The air was especially fresh after the rain, and the morning sun was bright but not dazzling. Han Yunxi's heart felt as if the sky had cleared after the rain. She went back to the tent and brought out the pots of sunflowers, placing them outside the tent. She purposely pulled Long Feiyi to stand for a while. When the sunflowers that were drooping saw the sun, they gradually raised their heads and faced the east. She wanted their love to see the light, to raise their heads, to face the sun, to be brilliant. When all the sunflowers raised their heads, Han Yunxi was satisfied. She let go of Long Feiyi's hand and followed behind him like a small guard with Su Donglin, heading towards the water prison. Just how many people were still dreaming in the morning after Qixi's night? In a bamboo hut beside a stream deep within a valley, Gu Beiyue had already woken up from his dream. His clothes were whiter than snow, and he was skinny. Between the green mountains and clear water, he seemed like he could fly away with the wind at any time and ascend to immortality. He stood by the window and gazed at the green mountains in the distance. Currently, a hawk circled around the top of the mountain. Only when the hawk flew over the top of the mountain and vanished into the horizon did he look away. His pale lips curled into a faint smile, just like the spring breeze in April. It was gentle, gentle, and still gentle. "Dear nephew North Moon, you've woken up early today." A deep voice rang out from outside the door. It was none other than Bai Yanqing. Chapter 866. Nephew Beiyue. How familiar was that title? The two elders of the Nether clan had once called him that too. Gu Beiyue was a nostalgic person, but he did not care about old friendships. He looked back and saw Bai Yanqing standing at the door. He was dressed in a gray robe, simple and clean, with a kind smile on his face. Although he did not look like a person of high status in this attire, Gu Beiyue's eyes were very sharp. When he saw Bai Yanqing that night, he knew that Bai Yanqing was no ordinary person. Gu Beiyue smiled and bowed politely. "Uncle Bai. Come, come. Let's sit outside. Uncle Bai found a few more herbs for you. Take a look." Bai Yanqing greeted him warmly. "Sorry to trouble you, Uncle Bai." A smear of mockery flashed through Gu Beiyue's clear eyes, but it vanished very quickly. When he fell off the cliff that day, he was immediately rescued by Bai Yanqing's guards. In less than 2 hours, he saw Bai Yanqing. Bai Yanqing claimed to be the head of the Wind Clan, as well as the former sect master of the 100 Poisons sect. He had been searching for the descendant of the Shadow clan for many years. If he had not seen him use the shadow technique in the forbidden grounds of the poison sect, he probably would never have found him. Bai Yanqing insisted that the person who tried to assassinate him was Long Fei Yi. He even told him that the Wind clan had known about Long Fei Yi's identity a long time ago, as well as Han Yunqi's origins. They had been hiding it all this time because they were waiting for the Winter Crow clan's 90,000 warhorses to arrive in Northernly so they could catch Long Fei Yi off guard. However, he never expected Long Fei Yi to suddenly announce his identity. As a result, after a discussion with the elders of the Wind clan, he decided to announce Han Yunqi's identity and work with the D clan to oppose Long Fei Yi. How could Gu Beiyue be so easily fooled? Even if he didn't work with Long Fei Yi in private, he would never believe Bai Yanqing's words so easily. Back then, the Nether clan's Chu clan had raised the banner of reviving Western Qin, attempting to establish their own faction from Western Zhou and join forces with the D clan to take over Tianning to deal with Long Fei Yi and Long Tianmo. All of Cloud Realm continent knew of this. If the Wind clan really wanted to revive Western Qin, why didn't they help the Nether clan's Chu clan back then? Even now, few people besides him and Long Fei knew of the Nether clan's ambitions to seize the emperor and command his vassals. Leaving aside the Wind clan, Gu Beiyue had long come to a conclusion about the Li and Black clans that had yet to show their faces. Now that Han Yunqi's identity had been exposed, these two factions should have sought out the D clan and Han Yunqi a long time ago. However, they hadn't made a move yet. Either they were truly standing aloof from worldly affairs, or they had ill intentions and were waiting for an opportunity to strike. Gu Beiyue wasn't an ignorant 3-year-old, nor was he an impulsive 13-year-old. He was born in Medical City and grew up in the Imperial Palace. He'd seen far too many people sinister, deceitful, and crafty schemes. He looked cultured, refined, and untainted by worldly affairs, but his clear eyes were untainted by anything. He'd long collected all the emotions of the world, the warmth and coldness of people's hearts. He was mature, steady, calm, and farsighted. He could be gentle in every way, but ruthless in every way. Even Long Fei Yi might not be as calm and rational as him. Just like how Long Fei Yi would lose his rationality for Han Yunqi, Bai Yanqing would never do the same. In fact, he would only be more rational. Bai Yanqing could not deceive a person like him, much less control him. Bai Yanqing had no idea that he and Long Fei Yi had already revealed their identities a long time ago. They had worked together in private. Since Bai Yanqing wanted to deceive him, he did not mind playing along. It was not like he could escape. The two of them sat down at the tea table under the tree in the courtyard. Bai Yanqing pushed for medicinal ingredients before Gu Beiyue and said seriously, "These are tiansang, earth leaf, ginseng, and ghost ji. Boil them together 3 times a day. They'll be beneficial to your recovery." Among the 4 herbs, apart from the ginseng, the other 3 were very precious. "Thank you for your care, Uncle Bai. This junior is unable to repay you." Gu Beiyue was sincere and was about to bow again. Sigh. Bai Yanqing stopped him in a hurry. "If nephew Beiyue continues to be so polite, it'll be pointless. Your parents passed away early. If you don't mind, you can treat Uncle Bai as part of your family." As he said that, he grabbed Gu Beiyue's hand and said seriously, "Nephew Beiyue, the princess' safety will all depend on you in the future. You saw how startling Long Fei Yi's swordsmanship was that night too." Gu Beiyue nodded and pulled back his hand without leaving a trace. Sigh, "I really never thought Long Fei Yi would be the East Qin crown prince. The princess is still in the Western Qin army. How has she been recently?" Gu Beiyue knew nothing about the current situation on Cloud Realm, let alone that East and Western Qin had already stopped fighting. Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi had already reconciled. Bai Yanqing told him that the Wind clan and Di clan had already become one, pledging their loyalty to the Western Qin princess and facing the enemy together. Right now, as long as Ningqing fended off the East Qin army's attacks, Jun Yixia could bring back his warhorses and win over Northern Li's cavalry. In just 3 months, Jun Yixia would lead his troops south and meet up with Ningqing. They would then beat Long Fei Yi to a pulp. Bai Yanqing had told him more than once that he only needed to focus on recuperating. Once his internal injuries were healed, there was no need to worry about the war. And after defeating Long Fei Yi, Western Qin and Tian'an would no longer be a problem. In a year's time, Western Qin would definitely recover. Everything is fine. Only. Bai Yanqing wanted to say something, but stopped. What's wrong? Gu Beiyue asked in a hurry. The princess is a sentimental person. She has deep feelings for Long Fei Yi, but she didn't think that Long Fei Yi would use her like this. I heard from the maidservants that the princess often has trouble sleeping at night. I'm afraid she's been hurt by love. Bai Yanqing spoke as if he was speaking the truth. Gu Beiyue didn't know how much of this was true and how much was false. He was most worried about this matter. With so many things happening at once, Han Yunxi would definitely misunderstand Long Fei Yi. Adding on the Wind clan's instigation, how sad would that silly girl be? Perhaps, as an outsider, he could see how much she liked Long Fei Yi. So, he didn't hesitate to take a risk. He secretly contacted Chu Tianyin with the help of a flying eagle and sent the letter Long Fei Yi had asked him to deliver to Han Yunxi. He sent it to Long Fei Yi. He had thought of sending it directly to Han Yunxi, but he was afraid that it would fall into the hands of Bai Yanqing and Ningqing. If he failed, he would also expose himself. He chose the safest method and had Chu Tianyin send it to Long Fei Yi. Han Yunxi was probably just a puppet in Western Qin's camp. She couldn't wield any power and might even be watched by others. However, Long Fei Yi was different. Even if the entire East Qin camp hated Han Yunxi, Long Fei Yi could still control everything. It had been half a month since the letter was sent, so Long Fei Yi must have received it by now. All of his hopes rested on Long Fei Yi. He only hoped that Long Fei Yi could find a way to tell Han Yunxi the truth as soon as possible. Gu Beiyue fell silent before he said, "The princess is a sentimental person and the most responsible woman in Cloud Realm Continent. Don't worry, Uncle Bai. The princess won't be trapped by personal feelings and forget her identity." But of course. Bai Yanqing replied hastily. Then he asked, "Nephew Beiyue, when did you find out about the princess's identity?" "Back in the poison sect's forbidden grounds, you and Jun Yixia," Gu Beiyue sighed softly. "Back then, I was only interested in the poison beast. I didn't know she was the princess. She showed me kindness in Tian'an Palace, so I naturally risked my life to save her when I saw her being bullied. Back then, he had almost died at Jun Yixia's hands in order to save Han Yunxi. Fortunately, Lil Thing had helped him out." Bai Yanqing's explanation for this was that Jun Yixia was his disciple and controlled Northern Li's military. He had long been disloyal to the Wind clan. Bai Yanqing slammed a fist on the table. This Jun Yixia. If he had told me back then, I would have found you long ago. Uncle Bai, since Jun Yixia is disloyal, why don't you hurry and, before Jun Beiyue could finish, Bai Yanqing cut him off seriously. The time isn't right yet. Right now, the Northern Dynasty's emperors are already on guard against him. It won't be too late for the old man to make his move after the Northern Dynasty's emperors have dealt with him. Although Bai Yanqing didn't say it outright, Gu Beiyue understood it very well. He had long understood the situation in Northern Li from Long Fei Yi. At the very least, he knew that Jun Xia had already used the Winter Crow clan as an envoy to kill the northernly crown prince. Now that he had so many warhorses with him, the Northern Dynasty's emperors were no pushovers. They would never let the matter rest. No matter what other relationship existed between Bai Yanqing and Jun Xia besides master and disciple, no matter how much of Bai Yanqing's words were true or false. Bai Yanqing would definitely use Jun Xia as a scapegoat to appease the Northern Dynasty's emperor's wrath and take control of the military himself. This was probably why Bai Yanqing hadn't returned to Northernly yet. Although he wasn't clear on the current situation, Gu Beiyue was certain that Long Feiyi had already made his move in Northernly. But how could Long Feiyi have expected Bai Yanqing to trick Jun Xia? He was afraid that Long Feiyi would end up helping Bai Yanqing by attacking Jun Xia. "You're smart, Uncle Bai." Gu Beiyue flattered him. Then when did nephew North Moon find out about the princess' identity, and how did he find out? Bai Yanqing raised this question again. He was clearly probing. Actually, Gu Beiyue had been waiting for him to ask this question for a very long time. It was also a coincidence. About half a year ago, I heard the princess maidservant, Bailey Mingxiang, mention that the princess has a phoenix birthmark on her back. Gu Beiyue lied and said indifferently, "I'm the only one left of the Shadow clan, and the Nether clan failed to mobilize their army." Long Feiyi's influence cannot be underestimated, and he's also a person of great ambition. If Long Feiyi found out about the princess' identity, the consequences, even I cannot imagine. I can only hide it for now and protect her in secret. As he said that, he smiled bitterly. I really, truly had no idea that Long Feiyi was actually a descendant of Yish Qin. Otherwise, I would have taken the princess away even if I had to sacrifice my life. Gu Beiyue had already learned about the phoenix birthmark from the Nether clan a long time ago. There was no need for him to go through so much trouble to lure Han Yunxi to the poison sect's heavenly pit and verify her identity. All he needed to do was use the opportunity to take a look at the birthmark on her back. However, he knew that Han Yunxi was not accustomed to being served by maidservants, while he himself would never do something as offensive as peeping on her. When he thought about how Su Xiaoyu had scalded Han Yunxi, he could tell with a single glance that it was Chu Tiannin's orders. They were aiming for the phoenix birthmark. Bai Yanqing nodded in thought. Gu Beiyue fell silent for a while before purposefully pretending to be confused. Speaking of Bailey Mingxiang, I find it rather strange. Strange how? Bai Yanqing was very interested. Chapter 867. Seeing Bai Yanqing's interest in Bailey Mingxiang, Gu Beiyue was certain that Bai Yanqing had already fallen for Long Feiyi's bait. In order to hide the truth about the lustbite energy, he had helped Long Feiyi trick Han Yunxi into sending Bailey Mingxiang to Celestial Mountain under the pretext of treating her with acupuncture. This Miss Bailey is the young miss of the Bailey estate and Bailey Yuanlong's own daughter. I don't know how she ended up in the Duke of Qin's estate as the princess's servant girl, Gu Beiyue said. Old man has heard of this as well. Back in Tianning's capital city, people even talked about it, Bai Yanqing asked. The young miss of the Bailey estate couldn't have really become a servant girl, right? Of course not. To outsiders, she's a servant girl, but she's actually learning acupuncture and poisons from the princess. The princess wasn't happy about it, but she couldn't chase her away. As this junior sees it, it's probably because of Long Feiyi's face. I heard that the Duke of Qin's estate never accommodates guests, but this Miss Bailey managed to live in the Duke of Qin's estate under the guise of a servant girl, Gu Beiyue said. Bai Yanqing fell silent, a shadow in his eyes. It was impossible to tell what he was thinking about. Gu Beiyue continued, that's not strange. What this junior doesn't understand is that when Long Feiyi was injured on Celestial Mountain, he specially summoned Bailey Mingxiang to the mountain to treat him with acupuncture. In terms of acupuncture skills, both the princess and this one are far superior to Bailey Mingxiang. Bai Yanqing finally spoke. You and the princess were busy with Medical City at the time. You probably didn't have time to rush to Celestial Mountain, right? Uncle Bai, there's something you don't know. This junior and Long Fei Yi recommended Imperial Physician Huang, but Long Fei Yi insisted on Miss Bailey. Gu Beiyue said seriously, in this junior's opinion, there must be something fishy about this matter. A complicated look flashed past Bai Yanqing's eyes as he nodded. He did not tell Gu Beiyue about the lustbite power and dual cultivation. These days, he had sent people to keep an eye on Bailey Mingxiang and investigate everything about Bailey Mingxiang. Not long ago, he had sent spies into the East Qin camp to investigate. When he came to find Gu Beiyue, he had just received news that the 3 dancer spies had failed their assassination and had been captured. In fact, the assassination was secondary to the fact that he had sent out the 3 dancer assassins. His main purpose was to probe. Although he was very suspicious of Bailey Mingxiang, he was not completely sure that Bailey Mingxiang was the one who had dual cultivated with Long Fei Yi. He would only kill Bailey Mingxiang personally after he was completely sure. In terms of swordsmanship, if they really competed, he would still be slightly inferior to Long Fei Yi. However, his poison skills were enough to suppress Long Fei Yi. Therefore, he had to stop Long Fei Yi from cultivating to the 3rd stage of the lustbite power. The 3rd stage was an invincible state. At that time, Long Fei Yi could easily avoid his poison skills. Gu Beiyue's words and the failure of the dancer spies had undoubtedly dispelled the last concerns in Bai Yanqing's heart. He thought that he could start planning and do it himself. Gu Beiyue didn't say anything else. This was all he could do to help Long Fei Yi. Although he wished that he could help a little more, he couldn't be impatient in front of Bai Yanqing. Bai Yanqing had underestimated him, but he wouldn't underestimate Bai Yanqing either. Uncle Bai, how did the Feng clan find out about the princess and Long Fei Yi's origins? Gu Beiyue asked seriously. Bai Yanqing told him about the mermaid blood that Jun Yixia had brought back from Fishery Island. As for Han Yunqi's origins, he hesitated for a long time before saying indifferently, you must have heard about Lady Tianqin's affair with a descendant of the poison sect in Medical City when you were young, right? Gu Beiyue was shocked. Although he had guessed, he didn't want to be right. I heard grandfather mention it, he replied. Bai Yanqing sighed. That descendant of the poison sect was me, your Uncle Bai. Gu Beiyue's hands stiffened. He couldn't speak for a long time. Bai Yanqing, the descendant of the poison sect, really was Lady Tianqin's lover and Han Yunqi's birth father. So, Uncle Bai, you already knew that Lady Tianqin was a descendant of Western Qin? Gu Beiyue asked. Bai Yanqing nodded without denying it. Then why did Lady Tianqin marry Han Kongan? Why didn't you ask about the princess at all? Why? Gu Beiyue asked again. I didn't know that Tianqin was Lianqin. I've been looking for her all these years. By the time I found out that Lianqin was Tianning's Tianqin, she had already died in childbirth. Yunxi had already grown up. Bai Yanqing grew emotional as his eyes shone with tears. My father is a descendant of the poison sect and my mother is a descendant of the Wind clan. Back then, I didn't know that Mu Axayan was a descendant of Western Qin's imperial clan until I saw her phoenix birthmark. I didn't even have time to tell her that I was a member of the Wind clan before she mistook me for having an affair with another woman. She ran away with my child. Bai Yanqing choked on his words, unable to speak. Gu Beiyue's eyes flashed with suspicion. He could tell that Bai Yanqing's tears were real. Why would a man cry unless he was truly moved? But he didn't believe Bai Yanqing's words at all. Bai Yanqing was Han Yunqi's father, so it was very likely that it was true. However, everything else was a lie. Helian Zuixiang's existence as a spy proved that Bai Yanqing had long known about Han Yunxi's identity and had long set up an ambush at the Han estate. If Bai Yanqing really wanted to revive Western Qin for the sake of Han Yunxi, he should have recognized Han Yunxi long ago. He should have made his move long ago instead of being stuck between the Long Fei Yi, Ningqing, and Northern Li. Gu Beiyue had assumed that Bai Yanqing's ambition was to rule the world, but now he was lost and afraid. If Han Yunxi knew that Bai Yanqing was her father, how would she feel? How would she disobey? Uncle Bai, why don't you recognize the princess? If the princess knows that her father is still alive, she'll definitely be very happy, Gu Beiyue probed. Bai Yanqing let out a long sigh. Uncle Bai owes her far, far too much. And, if we announce all of this at a time like this, I'm afraid, the D clan will become disloyal. Gu Beiyue expressed his understanding. Although they were both loyal to Western Qin, the two clans obviously had to contend for power. Bai Yanqing wiped away the tears at the corner of his eyes and smiled. Nephew Beiyue, you're the only one who knows about this. Don't worry, Uncle Bai. Beiyue knows what I'm doing, Gu Beiyue promised in a hurry. Only then did Bai Yanqing nod. Come, Uncle Bai will brew some medicine for you. You need to recover your inner qi as soon as possible. Medical City is still counting on you to return. With the assistance of Medical City, the Northern Dynasty's emperors will definitely rely on us even more. This junior can return to Medical City right now. Gu Beiyue probed. As expected, Bai Yanqing refused. There's no rush, no rush. Treat your injuries well. When the time comes, Uncle Bai will take you back. Gu Beiyue's lips curved into a cold smile. I'll listen to everything Uncle Bai says. As for the princess, I'll have to ask Uncle Bai to tell her that Beiyue is safe. Don't worry. Yunxi knows you're here with me and wants you to recuperate well. If you need any medicine, just say the word, Bai Yanqing replied. Gu Beiyue wanted to brew the medicine himself, so Bai Yanqing politely went over to help. When the medicine was ready, Bai Yanqing insisted that Gu Beiyue drink it while it was hot. Gu Beiyue didn't know what kind of poison was in the medicine, but he was certain it had to be a slow-acting one. For the sake of avoiding Bai Yanqing's suspicions, he would always drink it all in one gulp in front of Bai Yanqing, then secretly take medicine to induce vomiting. This method could only reduce the effects of the poison, but there would still be traces of it left in his body. Bai Yanqing's medicine did help with his internal injuries, but only by a very small amount. After taking the medicine, Gu Beiyue sighed. Uncle Bai, can you have the princess lend Lil Thing to this one? This junior really misses that little fellow. It's being raised in the poison storage space. You have to hurry and recover. Once this poison beast recovers, it can rival an entire army. Bai Yanqing refused. Gu Beiyue suspected that Lil Thing was in Bai Yanqing's hands and had been trapped by Bai Yanqing. Otherwise, with Lil Thing's temper, it would have escaped to find him long ago. After Bai Yanqing left, he immediately took medicine to induce vomiting, causing his organs to twist in discomfort. He tidied everything up and collapsed onto a stool. His already pale face was drained of color, his body so frail that it seemed like he could turn to ash at any moment. To reduce the amount of poison left in his body, he used a lot of medicine. Every time he vomited, his stomach and throat would hurt for an hour. Just like that, he suffered for an hour before exhaling a mouthful of turbid air. Ever since he was young, he'd endured all sorts of ailments, much less a trifling hour of agony. He was still weak, but his eyes flashed with a sinister light. He'd already found a way to send out the letter. Bai Yanqing, just you wait. At this moment, Gu was still lying on a large tree in a forest on the outskirts of Tianning's capital city. He was supposed to bring Bai Yuqiao out yesterday to rescue Su Xiaoyu. They were about to set off when Mu Ling suddenly said, "Chi brother, today's the double seventh festival. Let's leave tomorrow." If not for Mu Ling's reminder, he would have forgotten the date. The double seventh festival was his birthday and the origin of his name, Shao Qi. Unfortunately, no one knew about it except for the imprisoned Gu Yuntian and Ling Gai. Even Mu Ling and Han Yunxi, who loved him the most, didn't know. Gu left Mu Ling in the palace and ran out by himself. He slept for an entire day and night in this quiet forest. In the past, he couldn't sleep, but now he could easily fall asleep. That was pretty good. When the birds in the forest began to chirp noisily, Gu jumped down from the tree and stretched lazily before returning to the city. As soon as he entered the palace, he saw Mu Ling standing in front of him with her bright red rabbit eyes. "Chi brother, where did you go?" Ling thought. Mu Ling was choked with sobs before she could finish her sentence. She thought he'd left her behind like before and disappeared without a trace. Crybaby. Gu cast her a sidelong glance. At this moment, Ning'an walked over. "Gu, where did you go? We've been looking for you for an entire day and night. We agreed to set off today. What are you looking for this young master for?" Gu was lofty and unfriendly. When he was cold, he wasn't enchanting at all, but cool and elegant. "Ning Cheng is on the way. He wants you to wait for him. He wants to go with you." Ning'an replied. Gu immediately asked, "Then what about Han Yunxi?" Eastern and Western Qin had stopped fighting. No matter what, Han Yunxi had to write a letter to him. There had to be a reason for this. Ning'an glanced at Mu Ling and said, "Although the two armies have stopped fighting, the situation is not optimistic. The princess has to stay in the army." The princess said that Long Fei Yi is in the East Qin camp, so she will definitely be stationed in the Western Qin camp. Gu still wanted to ask, but Mu Ling tugged on his clothes and said in a low voice, "Chi brother, my elder sister sent a letter. It's with me." Mu Ling's elder sister was naturally Han Yunxi. She refused to call her elder sister in front of Han Yunxi, but she was proud of it in private and called her very naturally. Knowing that Han Yunxi had sent a letter, Gu was too lazy to pay attention to Ning'an. "I'll let you know tonight whether we're waiting for Ning Qing or not. This young master has something to do." As he spoke, he pulled Mu Ling away. He was anxious to see Han Yunxi's letter. Ning'an didn't stop him. Instead, he smiled meaningfully. Chapter 868. Gu pulled Mu Ling out of the palace and only stopped after making sure that there was no one following them. Mu Ling quickly took out the secret letter. "Chi brother, here, it just arrived this morning." Mu Ling was also curious about the contents of the letter. Gu opened it and saw that the handwriting was elegant and powerful. It was indeed Han Yunxi's handwriting. There were 3 things in the letter. The first thing was about stopping the war between Eastern and Western Qin. Han Yunxi said that Ning Qing and Long Fei Yi had reached an agreement to stop the war and deal with the Feng clan separately. They would continue the war after taking down the Feng clan. The second thing was for him to do his best to help Ning Qing and use Bai Yuqiao to find Bai Yanqing. It would be best if he could use Bai Yuqiao as a witness to expose Jun Yixia and obtain the approval of the Northern Dynasty's emperors. Then, he could fight for cooperation with Northern Li. The third thing was to report to him and Mu Ling that she was safe and that she was doing well in the army. Mu Ling quickly finished reading the letter and was filled with passion. "Chi brother, we must help my sister take down the Feng clan before Long Fei Yi." Actually, Gu Qishao should be even more excited about this than Mu Ling. His blood should be boiling. However, he was not excited at all. Instead, he slowly narrowed his eyes and pondered over the letter word by word. Soon, Mu Linger noticed that he was acting strangely. "Chi brother, what's wrong?" Gu did not speak and continued to stare at the letter. After a while, he checked the envelope inside and out and compared the handwriting on the envelope with the handwriting on the letter. "Chi brother, you suspect that this letter is fake?" Mu Linger was shocked. "This handwriting, is it the same?" Gu asked. Mu Linger carefully compared them for a while and nodded with certainty. "It's exactly the same. This is my sister's handwriting. I can't be wrong. I've seen several prescriptions written by her. I still have them." Mu Linger quickly took out a prescription and compared it with Gu's handwriting. "It's the same." Mu Linger was even more certain. Gu muttered to himself, "It is indeed the same. Then it can't be wrong. Chi brother, let's wait for Ningqing and interrogate Bai Yuqiao together. Maybe we can find something else." Mu Linger said seriously. Gu gave her a look of disdain. "You'll have to continue with the torture. Can a little white rabbit like you take it?" A few days ago, she had advised him not to torture her anymore, but today, she actually allowed him to continue the interrogation. What was this wretched girl thinking? Mu Linger struggled for a while before saying seriously, "I can take it. I'll interrogate her with you." He didn't know whether to say that there was a little devil living in the kind-hearted Mu Linger's heart, or that there was a little white rabbit living in the little devil's heart, Mu Linger. Gu had been mulling over the contents of the letter. He had originally planned to ignore Mu Linger, but he couldn't help but ask, "Girl, didn't you say that poison girl couldn't let go of Long Fei Yi? Why are you so excited now? Can't wait for them to fight." Mu Linger chuckled. "Chi brother, my sister isn't an ordinary woman. I can guarantee that even if my sister is being used, she still loves Long Fei Yi very much. However, she will shoulder the heavy responsibility of reviving Western Qin. She won't be with Long Fei Yi. So we have to help her settle the Feng clan as soon as possible. Now that Eastern and Western Qin have stopped fighting, the longer she confronts Long Fei Yi, the more painful it will be for her. It's better to end the pain quickly than to prolong the pain." Gu Qishao rapped his knuckles against her forehead. "What do you know?" Mu Linger glared at him, too lazy to explain. Although she couldn't bear to see Bai Yuqiao die, she was especially excited at the thought of being able to fight alongside Chi brother and help Han Yunxi and Ningqing conquer the world together, freeing Han Yunxi as soon as possible. She couldn't help but imagine Han Yunxi becoming the Empress of Cloud Realm, wearing the crown and ruling the world. "Poison Lass wants us to work with Ningqing," Gu muttered to himself. Mu Linger was so immersed in her own imagination that she didn't notice Chi brother's confusion. She asked casually, "Chi brother, do you want to reply now?" Gu put away the letter and smiled brightly, a trace of viciousness flashing across his long, beautiful eyes. "No need, we'll wait for Ningqing to come." After returning, Gu was too lazy to meet Ning, and Mu Linger ran to Ningqing excitedly and said, "Ning and Chi brother said that he wants to wait for Ningqing to come back. Urge Ningqing to come back as soon as possible. We'll be leaving first if you wait too long." "Little girl, you're so impudent." Ning'an laughed. "Who allowed you to call us by our names? In the future, you have to call her big sister and big brother Ningqing, understand?" Although her tone was reproachful, it was even more intimate. Those who didn't know better would think that Ning'an and Mu Linger were very close. Mu Linger raised her chin proudly. "I only have one big sister, your master, the Princess of Western Qin. Ning'an, don't talk about seniority with me. If we really talk about seniority, I'm actually one level higher than you. If Han Yunxi knew that this proud girl was using her name in private and was so arrogant, she would definitely burst out laughing. When had Ningen ever been humiliated so bluntly? Anger rose in her heart, but she couldn't refute it. If Ning Qing hadn't instructed her to find a way to keep this brat, she might not have been so polite. She pretended not to hear what Mu Ling has said and changed the topic. Miss Ling, you're not young anymore. Later, I'll ask the princess to find you a husband. With the princess's discerning eyes, she won't mistreat you. You don't have to worry about my marriage. Mu Ling, was very direct. I'm just worried about you when I saw you being bullied by Gu. Ningen glanced at her and said, that night, if Ning Qing hadn't asked me to let you go, Gu wouldn't have let Ning Qing go even if he had to watch you die, right? A trace of pain flashed past Mu Ling's eyes. She didn't want to continue talking to Ningen and turned to leave. Ningen quickly stopped her. Girl, you're the princess's good sister, so I'm reminding you. If it were someone else, I wouldn't care. For a man like Gu, the more you stick to him, the less he will cherish you. He will only know how to cherish you if you give him the cold shoulder. Men are all cheap. Mu Ling finally looked at Ningen seriously. Ningen knew she had a chance and was about to persuade her again, but Mu Ling suddenly closed in and said word by word, Ningen, you're wrong. Women are even more cheap than men. The more he doesn't like me, the more I want to stick to him. Even if he doesn't like me for the rest of my life, as long as I can be with him, I'm willing to do anything. You've never been in true love, so you won't understand. After she finished speaking, she turned and left without looking back, leaving Ningen stunned. She even doubted if she could keep Mu Ling. Did she have to use extreme methods? Send a message to the clan head. Gu has taken the bait. Tell him to come quickly, Ningen instructed the mama beside her in a low voice. Yes, the old mama replied in a low voice. Master, the things you wanted to give Miss Jing have been delivered. Did she say anything? Ningen asked seriously. He didn't say anything. The Tang clan head invited a few elders of the trade consortium to a banquet and said he'd consider their cooperation. Miss Jing didn't say a word from beginning to end. A few of the elders were very dissatisfied, the old mama replied honestly. What's there to be dissatisfied about? If they want to cooperate with the Tang clan, they have to rely on Jing. Those old men only went to negotiate, so what can they do to help? Ningen said unhappily. In the end, she still loved her little sister dearly. Currently, Ning Jing was staring blankly at the things Ningen had given her. Ningen's gift was none other than a miraculous contraceptive. As long as she took it, she would never be able to have any more children. Even the child she was carrying would be lost. Before she married Tang Li, it was Ning Nuo who personally went to the Tang clan to negotiate. He wanted Tang Li to marry into the family, but was rejected. The result of the negotiations was that her and Tang Li's eldest son would stay at the Tang clan and inherit the position of clan head in the future. The second son would be sent to Cloud Realm Trade Consortium to take over her duties there. Although everything was written clearly in black and white, Ning Qing had only given her a year's time in private. He wanted her to cooperate with the Tang clan and Cloud Realm Trade Consortium in the arms trade. If she couldn't get the two sides to cooperate within a year, Ning Qing would be ruthless and force her to work with him to empty out the Tang clan. Under these circumstances, she couldn't have a child, or else it'd only harm the child. Ningen didn't want her to get pregnant with someone she didn't like. Looking at the medicine in her hands, Ning Jing's icy heart finally warmed up. No matter what, at least someone in the Ning clan still cared about her. But the warmer her heart was, the more she blamed herself. The Tang clan was Long Fei Ye's power and had been deceiving the D clan this entire time. She knew the truth and had a chance to tell Ning Qing, but she didn't. Not only that, she even reminded Tang Li, Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's elders had come to visit to discuss the terms of cooperation and had just returned. Tang Li must be secretly plotting with them how to help Long Fei Yi deal with the D clan. She didn't even need to think to know that Tang Li would fake the cooperation and take over Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's arms trade for himself. She was guilty. She had let down the D clan in Western Qin, as well as all the sacrifices her brothers and sisters had made over the years. Her hand unconsciously stroked her stomach. How she wished someone could tell her what she should do. There wasn't much time left. No matter what choice she had to make it fast. She couldn't act like the past and pretend with Tang Li to drag things out day by day. At this moment, the door was suddenly pushed open and Tang Li walked in. Ning Jing quickly hid the medicine in her sleeve, all traces of helplessness and guilt vanishing from her face. Even though she was now Tang Li's prisoner, she still acted like a proud queen ordering people around. I'm hungry. Tell the kitchens to make something for me to eat. I want to eat red bean porridge. Tang Li gave her a cold look before ignoring her and sitting down on the bed. Ning Jing was about to speak when a servant girl brought in a plate of food. Among them was the red bean porridge she'd asked for. After living together for nearly a year, he knew what she liked. But before the servant girl could set down the food, she viciously flipped it over. I'm not eating anymore. Get out. The servant girl was scared to death and left in a hurry. Tang Li glanced at her but didn't say a word. He leaned against the pillow and closed his eyes, looking exhausted. Ning Jing walked in front of him and shouted, I want to eat red bean porridge, do you hear me? Tang Li ignored her, but she didn't stop. She yelled 4 times in a row until Tang Li finally opened his eyes and said cold, Isn't there some on the floor? On the floor, there was a pile of red bean porridge mixed with broken bowls and chopsticks. It was a mess. I wanted you to make it. Ning Jing was like a spoiled princess, throwing tantrums without reason. Chapter 869. Silence reigned in the room as the floor was a mess. Tang Li leaned against the bed as he watched Ning Jing's unreasonable tantrums expressionlessly. It wasn't as if the same thing hadn't happened before. On a certain late night not long after their wedding, Ning Jing was hungry and ignored the servant girls to wake up Tang Li instead. She wanted him to find her something to eat. As the executive chairman of Cloud Realm Trade Consortium, how could Ning Jing be a spoiled princess when she was in charge of such a large business and the D clan's Ning family business? Tang Li knew that her unreasonable tantrums were only meant to make him lose his temper, so he played along to the end. Back then, Tang Li's acting skills were superb. No matter how much trouble Ning Jing made, he waited on her like a slave to his wife. He even seemed to enjoy the hardship as if it were syrup. He personally went to the kitchens to find a bowl of red bean porridge. Ning Jing took a bite before dropping it to the ground, complaining that it was too sweet and cloying. He wasn't angry at all, but told her to wait with a chuckle. He personally went to boil a bowl of porridge and added double the amount of sugar, preparing to play the fool and prank her. He even planned to make another bowl with double the amount of sugar if she thought it was too sweet. That was until she stopped ordering him around. But Ning Jing not only didn't fall for Tang Li's tricks, but ate it all in one go. She even praised Tang Li's culinary skills and said that she would only eat his red bean porridge in the future. Thus, from that night onwards, Ning Jing would torment Tang Li every few days. Sometimes it was late at night, sometimes early in the morning. No matter how tired Tang Li was, she would drag Tang Li out of bed to make porridge. Tang Li was not easy to deal with. He added more and more sugar to the porridge, but Ning Jing could eat it. That was until one time when Tang Li added 10 spoonfuls of sugar to a small bowl of red bean porridge, and Ning Jing ate it all without frowning. Tang Li almost suspected that there was something wrong with Ning Jing's taste buds. Tang Li was defeated in this secret battle of sweetness. He was really afraid that Ning Jing would get sick if she continued eating like this. From then on, she didn't dare to add too much sugar to the porridge. Ning Jing didn't comment on the difference in taste. She ate it all quietly. This incident made Tang Li understand a principle. Don't take a woman seriously. When a woman takes a man seriously, she is too scary. The past was still vivid in his mind, but now things had changed. Tang Li raised his eyebrows and glanced at Ning Jing. He sneered, "Forget it if you don't want it." After he finished speaking, he got up and strode out of the door. Ning Jing chased after him at the door but was stopped by the guards. She was under house arrest and couldn't go out at all. Actually, she didn't want to go out. She was just putting on an act. She was sure that he wouldn't come back tonight. Only when he wasn't around could she calm down and think about what she should do. Tang Li didn't go far from the courtyard when he bumped into Madame Tang. Madame Tang looked anxious. "Ollie, the elders are looking for you." "You, what are you doing in the middle of the night? Why are you hiding in the kitchens to cook porridge?" Yes, the red bean porridge that Ning Jing overturned was the porridge that Tang Li locked himself in the kitchens to cook after he stood the elders up. He didn't know what was wrong with him today. "I didn't," Tang Li denied. "You can fool your father, but can you fool me?" "Li, tell mother the truth. Have you really taken a fancy to that girl Ning Jing?" Lady Tang asked seriously. Tang Li ignored her and strode forward. Madame Tang quickly chased after him and said in a displeased voice, "You little brat, if this old lady couldn't see through your thoughts, then I would have doted on you for 20 years for nothing." Tang Li still didn't say anything as he headed to the discussion hall. Madame Tang didn't chase after him and shouted, "Someone come, take Ning Jing to Returning Dragon Peak. Tell Eru to properly watch over her." Returning Dragon Peak was where the Tang sect's ancestral hall was located, enshrining the ancestral tablets. Madame Tang didn't know that Aunt Ru was imprisoned on Returning Dragon Peak. Only when Han Yunxi's identity was exposed and Tang Zijin impulsively went to Returning Dragon Peak to find Aunt Ru did Madame Tang learn of this matter. Now that Ning Jing was under house arrest in the Tang sect, if Madame Tang sent her to Aunt Ru on Returning Dragon Peak, with Aunt Ru's hatred for the East Qin camp, in less than 3 days, Ning Jing would be tortured to death. Tang Li kept walking forward, causing Madame Tang's lips to curve up into a smile as she silently counted in her heart. 1, 2, 3. She thought she could count to 5, but she didn't even reach 4 before Tang Li stopped. But Tang Li didn't look back, only said coldly, "Do as you like. But if she tortures Aunt Ru to death, I might not be able to take down Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's arms trade." So speaking, he strode away. Madame Tang chased after him a few times, but couldn't catch up. That damn child. Madame Tang was so angry that her face turned green. "Old man, calm down and take care of your body," the servant girl coaxed anxiously. "Say, this child, just what is he thinking?" Madame Tang realized that she didn't understand her son at all. After some hesitation, Madame Tang went to Ning Jing's rooms. It was already late at night, so Ning Jing never expected Madame Tang to show up. She hadn't even dressed properly when Madame Tang dismissed all the servant girls and walked into the bedroom. Ning Jing had lived on Reclining Dragon Peak for months and sparred with Madame Tang countless times with Tang Li protecting her. She'd never met the woman alone like this before. For some reason, Ning Jing felt a little flustered. A complicated look flitted past her eyes before she simply sat still on the bed. Madame Tang slowly sat down on one side and said, "Ning Jing, since you're still my daughter-in-law, I'll give you a way out. Do you want it or not?" Be straightforward. If there's no arms trade, there's only one life. Ning Jing coldly said. She wondered why Madame Tang had come in the middle of the night, but it turned out she was here to give her a way out. Ning Jing calmed down considerably. After she returned to the Tang clan, Tang Zijin and the rest had sought her out. All of them had come to give her a way out, all for the sake of the arms trade. She'd already betrayed the D clan once, so she wouldn't betray them a second time. Tang Li had already taken away all the accounts and keys of her arms trade. But without her personal seal and the seal of Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's Council of Elders, Tang Li still couldn't take over the arms trade. Madame Tang laughed. Arms trade? Hee, that's a man's business. Ning Jing, I'm not asking you to do anything to betray the D clan. I just want you to restrain yourself and draw a clear line between you and the D clan. Once Tang Li takes over the arms trade, I promise to keep you alive and find a way to keep you by Tang Li's side as a concubine. If you agree, you'll have to swear an oath. Once they took over the arms trade and revealed the Tang clan's true background, the D clan's Ning clan wouldn't be able to do anything to them. Nor would they be able to get Ning Jing back. With Tang Zijin's temper and the Council of Elders' style, they'd definitely kill Ning Jing. Madame Tang felt that the conditions she'd offered Ning Jing were already very generous. If she wasn't afraid that her son would fall out with the Tang clan because of love, she would never do something so foolish. Ning Jing couldn't help but laugh out loud. Madame Tang grew angry. What are you laughing at? You're not asking me to do anything to betray the D clan. Madame Tang, if your son falls into the D clan's hands and loses the Tang clan's hidden weapons, will he still be able to live? Ning Jing retorted. She clearly knew the truth but did nothing. That was an even more shameless betrayal. Although Madame Tang hoped that her son would survive no matter what, she couldn't answer Ning Jing's question. She couldn't confidently say, I will. Madame Tang was speechless for a long time before she huffed, Ning Jing, you're a woman. Why must you be so stubborn? If you surrender to the Tang clan, Tang Li won't mistreat you. Ning Jing sneered. I don't care about that shameless Tang Li. If Madame Tang doesn't have anything else to say, please leave. Madame Tang stood up abruptly and said angrily, Ning Jing, do you want to waste time like this? Don't even think that the D clan can save you. I'm telling you, the Tang clan will take the arms trade. Once Tang Li takes the arms trade, it'll be your time to die. Madame Tang left in a huff. Ning Jing smiled coldly, unmoved. How could she hope for the D clan to save her? What a joke. After locking the door, Ning Jing took out the medicine Ning gave her. Without hesitation, she soaked the powder and poured it into the flower pot on the side, leaving no trace behind. If Ning knew she'd betrayed Ning Qing and didn't tell Ning Qing about the Tang clan's true background, she'd never give her medicine again. She wouldn't even acknowledge her as her little sister. She didn't need an abortion pill. All she needed was a bottle of poison. Once she took it, she'd die and be done with it. If she continued living, she'd only be at Tang Li's mercy. She'd trick Ning Qing and steal Cloud Realm Continent's arms trade. She'd already made a mistake once. If she kept doing it, even death wouldn't be enough to atone for her sins. Actually, she should have died long ago in Medical City. If she had, Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's Council of Elders wouldn't have come to the Tang clan to negotiate. Then they wouldn't have fallen into Tang Li's trap. Thinking up to here, Ning Jing took out the dagger she always carried with her, but couldn't bring herself to do it. If this was the past, she would have been decisive and ruthless. Whether it was others or herself, she wouldn't even blink in the face of death. Those who should live, and those who should die early, right? But now she had someone to tie her down. Her hand unconsciously stroked her stomach again. She was ruthless to Tang Li and herself, but how could she be ruthless to an innocent little life? She hadn't lied to Tang Li at Medical City. She really was pregnant with his child, their child. She had imagined countless times how Tang Li would react if he found out about the existence of this little fellow. If this was the past, he'd definitely put on a good show and happily pick her up and spin her around in circles, right? But now, he'd said in Medical City that she didn't have the right to be in his arms. He'd only found a doctor to abort the child. She could either die, or flee the Tang clan and the D clan as soon as her stomach showed signs of pregnancy. Ning Jing had chosen the latter long ago, but it was simply too difficult to escape. Unless Tang Li took her down the mountain again, she had no chance at all. She only had 1 month at most. Ning Jing decided to risk it all. Anyway, the worst result was death. It couldn't be worse. After making up her mind, Ning Jing slept very soundly that night. Late at night, the elders had all left. Tang Li sat alone in the empty meeting hall. He was dressed in white like a banished immortal, but his lonely figure was like a fallen immortal who had fallen into the depths of hell, never to be redeemed or liberated. He was silent for a long time. Suddenly, he stood up and rushed out of the door like a madman. He ran all the way to Ning Jing's door. The guards on night duty were frightened by him. "Sect Master, what happened?" "Open the door," he said coldly. Chapter 870. The guard didn't dare to delay and hurriedly opened the door for Tang Li. But even after the lock was unlocked, the door still wouldn't open. Tang Li then realized that Ning Jing had locked the door from the inside. "Ask her to open the door," he said coldly, not wanting to do it himself. With the guard's shout, no matter how deep Ning Jing slept, she woke up. But she didn't think much of it as she turned over and buried her head in the pillow and continued to sleep. "Master, nothing will happen, right?" the guard asked worriedly. Tang Li knew Ning Jing too well. If she didn't want to open the door, even if the guard shouted until his voice was hoarse, she wouldn't bother about it. He didn't say anything else and broke through the window from the side. He had already jumped into the room, but Ning Jing was still nestled in the silk blanket, indifferent. She knew that other than him, no one else would dare to barge in. Tang Li rushed to the front of the bed like a madman, but when he saw Ning Jing's peaceful sleeping face, he suddenly calmed down. Even though he knew that she was pretending to sleep, he didn't expose her. Why did he rush over? He didn't know either. He just stood there like that, and half an hour later, Ning Jing finally turned around to look at him. "What's the matter?" "I'll give you one last chance, hand over your seal, otherwise, I'll send you to the dark prison right now," Tang Li said coldly. "Do as you wish." Ning Jing still said the same words. Tang Li suddenly grabbed her hand and dragged her outside. Ning Jing allowed him to drag her to the door. It wasn't until the guard at the door suddenly turned around that Tang Li realized that Ning Jing's clothes were disheveled and her body was exposed. His originally gloomy face suddenly became even more frightening. He kicked the guard far away and went back to grab a set of clothes and threw it to Ning Jing, shameless. "Thanks to you," Ning Jing retorted bluntly. "Wear it," he said angrily. "I'm happy to." "What does that have to do with you?" Ning Jing asked. In the past few months, if it weren't for Tang Li giving in to her, who knew how many times they would have quarreled every day. "Don't forget that this sect master is the one who officially married you. Don't embarrass me before you die." As Tang Li spoke, he tried to pull Ning Jing again. However, Ning Jing stopped him and said, "Let go. I promise you." She had been waiting for an opportunity, and now that he had come knocking on her door, she naturally had to seize it. The word whatever just now was just for show. At least you know what's good for you. Tang Li immediately reached out to ask for the seal. Ning Jing sized him up and could not help but chuckle. Tang Li, I thought you were very smart since you were so good at acting. I didn't expect you to be so stupid. Cut the crap. Hand it over. Tang Li said coldly. Why would I carry such an important thing with me? Ning Jing asked. After you married into the Tang sect, you were still in charge of everything in the arms trade. If you don't carry the seal with you, how do you communicate with the arms trade? Tang Li asked. The people in the arms trade only followed the rules. Without the seal, no matter how many letters Ning Jing wrote, the people in the arms trade would not accept them. My letters are all transferred to someone. After he stamps them for me, he sends them to the arms trade. It's up to you to believe it or not, Ning Jing explained. Where is he? Tang Li asked. In Northernly, Ning Jing answered. Tell him to send the seal over immediately. Tang Li ordered. You are really stupid. Ning Jing scolded again. The reason why I left the seal in his hands was because my brother was suspicious of the relationship between the Tang sect and Long Fei Yi. If you do this now, you'll only arouse my brother's suspicions. Where is he in Northernly? Who is he? What does he look like? Tang Li wanted to send someone to search. His name is Ouyang Jing, one of my brother's trusted aides. He's in charge of Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's business in Northernly. Ning Jing feigned helplessness. Cloud Realm Trade Consortium doesn't have any business in Northernly. He's a businessman on the surface, but he's actually my D-clan spy in Northernly. He's the adopted son of the head of Northernly's main trade consortium. Pack up. I'll take you down the mountain tomorrow so we can search together. If you dare to play any tricks, you'll have to bear the consequences. Tang Li got straight to the point. Ning Jing played with her pretty fingernails as she said coldly, I won't go with you. State your conditions. No way I'll let you go. Tang Li understood her very well. After you get my personal seal on Cloud Realm's arms trade, you have to promise to protect my life and provide me with good food and drinks. Ning Jing said seriously. She didn't notice the flash of joy in Tang Li's eyes. He had been waiting for her to yield and compromise for a long, long time. As long as she was willing to yield a step, he would protect her life even if he had to offend all the elders of the Tang clan, his father, and the entire East Qin faction. He didn't want her to leave, much less die. It's a promise. Tang Li stuck out his pinky. Ning Jing glanced at him disdainfully. She refused to make a pinky promise with him, but took his hand and gave him a high five. But as soon as Ning Jing's hand touched Tang Li's, Tang Li suddenly grabbed her hand and pulled her into his embrace. He lowered his head and kissed her in a familiar manner. He domineeringly pried open her mouth and entered. However, after a while, Ning Jing suddenly broke free from him and looked at him with eyes filled with confusion. Tang Li instantly sobered up. His lips curled as he said with a cold smile, I hope our cooperation goes smoothly. One more woman to warm my bed, this sect master. Before he could finish, Ning Jing sent a slap over. She used a lot of strength and slapped Tang Li's face until it swelled up, but her voice was still calm. She even smiled at Tang Li as she said, You can't do it. How about you kill me right now? I'll come pick you up tomorrow morning. Tang Li threw down these words before turning to leave. His breath still lingered on her lips. Ning Jing grinned, full of self-mockery. Deep into the night, Long Fei Yi, who was far away in the army, didn't know that Tang Li had fallen into Ning Jing's trap. He personally interrogated the 3 dancer spies. The tall dancer and the lead dancer were tortured to death, but they didn't make a sound. Now, only the green-clothed dancer was still breathing, but she didn't say a word for the entire night. This was Long Fei Ye's biggest failure in interrogating spies. Although it was a failure, he rather admired by Yanqing's female spies. After all, the torture he used the entire night was torture. When he walked out of the cell, Han Yunxi immediately walked over from the other side. She had been watching all night and didn't show her face. "Your Highness, let's keep this woman. We'll interrogate her in a few days," Bailey Yuanlong advised. He stood in front of Han Yunxi, blocking her. Long Fei Yi didn't say anything, but reached out a hand to Han Yunxi. Even if Bailey Yuanlong wasn't willing, he still had to step aside. The water prison was set up in a karst cave under the river next to the army camp. It was guarded by mermaid soldiers and was very well hidden. Long Fei Yi led Han Yunxi out of the karst cave and only let her go when they reached the shore. Bailey Yuanlong followed, but before he could speak, Long Fei Yi said coldly, "This crown prince will be leaving secretly tonight. I'll have to trouble General Bailey with military affairs." "Your Highness, are you planning to use that clue?" Bailey Yuanlong asked in a low voice. Han Yunxi was slightly startled. She didn't understand what Bailey Yuanlong wanted, but she didn't ask on the spot. "Men," Long Fei Yi instructed, "proceed as usual in the army. Both the Navy and the Army, prepare for war at any time. Also, pay attention to Tian'an and Western Zhou's movements." "Yes." Bailey Yuanlong glanced at Han Yunxi, thinking that His Highness was probably going to leave with Han Yunxi. Just as he was wondering how to persuade him, Su Donglin suddenly rushed over. "Your Highness, General, several soldiers in the kitchen camp have been poisoned. I don't know what poison they've been poisoned with, but they're foaming at the mouth and twitching non-stop. The military doctors are helpless." Long Fei Yi and Bailey Yuanlong were both startled, but Han Yunxi didn't say anything and hurriedly ran to the kitchen camp. Long Fei Yi immediately followed, leaving Bailey Yuanlong standing in place with a complicated expression. "General Bailey, shall we go together?" Su Donglin asked tentatively. Bailey Yuanlong glared at him, then left with a flick of his sleeves. When he arrived at the kitchen camp, he was shocked by the scene in front of him. Su Donglin, who'd arrived shortly after, was also shocked. Before he'd left, several soldiers were still foaming at the mouth and twitching all over. In just a short while, their skin had turned black, and even their faces had turned black. It was extremely terrifying. Han Yunxi had the poisoned soldiers take the antidote one by one, then turned to look at Long Fei Yi. "I can only save one. Who should I save? Hurry up." Long Fei Yi was about to speak when Bailey Yuanlong cried out in alarm, "What do you mean?" Han Yunxi took out golden needles and medicine from her medical pouch as she explained, "They've been poisoned by the white-lipped ringed kite. If they've been poisoned for more than 3 minutes, they'll undoubtedly die. To detoxify this poison, besides taking the antidote, you also need to find the acupoints to expel the poison. There's no time now, so I can only save one person. Hurry up and make your choice. Otherwise, you won't be able to save anyone. Also, General Bailey, you'd better hurry and inform the soldiers to be on high alert. The white-lipped ringed kites usually don't move, but once they do, they'll move in groups. There's at least 1,000 of them. It's impossible for them to only attack these few soldiers. There must be a big snake den near the camp." As Han Yunxi spoke, she tossed Bailey Yuanlong a large bag of antidote. "Soak 2 large vats of water and let the soldiers drink it, just in case." Bailey Yuanlong caught the antidote. He was 70% convinced and 30% skeptical. His Highness trusted Han Yunxi, and so would he. His Highness was willful, but he wouldn't joke around with the lives of the entire army. However, Han Yunxi was still a Western Qin princess. If he had poison in his hands, the Bailey army would be completely wiped out. Long Fei picked the strongest soldier and said, "Protect him." Su Donglin hurriedly stepped forward to help the soldier take off his shirt. Han Yunxi's movements were nimble, fast, and accurate. She had her own set of acupuncture techniques, and her movements were professional, domineering, and charming. Bailey Yuanlong had already sent someone to inform him of this emergency, but he still held the antidote in his hand, hesitating. Long Fei frowned. "What are you still standing there for?" Bailey Yuanlong hurriedly turned and left. He returned to his own tent and personally soaked the antidote into 2 large vats of water. However, he didn't immediately distribute it to the soldiers. Instead, he found a soldier to test it out. The soldier took a sip and didn't suffer any major injuries. 2 military doctors stood by his side and checked his pulse every once in a while. Bailey Mingxiang rushed over when he heard the news. He was extremely anxious when he saw the soldier testing the antidote. Just as he was about to persuade him, Deputy General Zhao rushed in like a madman. "General! General! Something bad has happened. A large number of poisonous snakes have appeared in the West Camp. All the soldiers there have been bitten, and only a dozen or so have survived. So far, we've only discovered about 300 snakes. We don't know if there are any more that haven't been found yet. Most of the soldiers were sleeping in the middle of the night. It was impossible to guard against a swarm of poisonous snakes. Moreover, Bailey Yuanlong had just issued the order, and the soldiers hadn't yet deployed their defenses. When he recalled Han Yunxi's, at least 1,000, Bailey Yuanlong's vision darkened and he almost fainted. It's over. Chapter 871. Even if Bailey Yuanlong risked his life to hold on, he couldn't afford to pass out at this critical juncture. Deputy General Zhao, hurry. Pour these 2 large vats of water down. Each person should drink a mouthful to prevent the snake's venom. Everyone, be on guard and search for the poisonous snake. After Bailey Yuanlong gave the order, he immediately rushed to the West Camp. By the time he arrived, Long Fei Yi and Han Yunxi had already arrived. The ground was littered with corpses. More than 200 people, as well as several hundred bitten victims, had already taken the antidote. Fortunately, Han Yunxi's detoxification system had concocted a pile of antidotes at the last minute. Otherwise, no one present would have survived if they had to find the antidote at the last minute. Han Yunxi was still dressed in her shadow guard attire. She was crouching on the side, administering acupuncture to detoxify several high-ranking officers. Su Donglin and a few shadow guards stood around her, not allowing anyone to approach or disturb her. Bailey Yuanlong didn't see His Highness. As soon as he saw Han Yunxi, he excitedly rushed over. Han, he almost spilled the beans, but hurriedly corrected himself. Feiyun, the situation, before he could finish, Su Donglin sternly interrupted him. His Highness has ordered that anyone who disturbs Feiyun will be killed without mercy. This general wants to ask, General Bailey, Feiyun is saving the soldiers. Every moment is precious. Wasting a single word with you will cost a life. Can you bear the consequences? Su Donglin didn't forget to remind him, General Bailey, you'll have to take responsibility for the lives of all the people in this place. Save your energy. Bailey Yuanlong's heart skipped a beat, but he remained silent. He looked at Han Yunxi and saw that her expression was grave and solemn. Her movements were crisp and nimble. She didn't panic because of the urgency of the situation, nor did she cut back on her treatment because of the lives at stake. She was calm and decisive. She didn't waste any time. Even the strands of hair that had fallen down were tied up by Granny Zhao. She spent every moment on saving people. Bailey Yuanlong had originally wanted to set aside the rift in his heart and sincerely ask Han Yunxi for advice on how to salvage the situation and find those snakes. He was extremely dissatisfied when Su Donglin stopped him, but after watching for a while, he saw that the faces of the guards saved by Han Yunxi had regained their color. He was wholeheartedly convinced. Of course, he did not stand there for too long. He asked the person beside him, "Where is His Highness?" His Highness brought people to catch the snakes. The princess gave His Highness some medicine that can lure the snakes out. Su Donglin answered truthfully. Bailey Yuanlong was about to leave when he added, "Guard the place well. Don't let anyone disturb him." Su Donglin didn't know whether to be angry or amused, so he ignored him. Just like that, Long Fei Yi led people to find the hidden poisonous snakes, Han Yunxi rescued the injured, and Bailey Yuanlong and several deputy generals distributed the antidote to all the soldiers in the camp. The chaotic scene quickly became orderly. The white-lipped Krite's venom flared up too quickly. No matter how fast Han Yunxi moved, the number of people she could save was ultimately limited. Fortunately, the poison was discovered quickly in West Camp. Some soldiers took the antidote in time and saved their lives without Han Yunxi's needles. After Han Yunxi finished her rescue work, she didn't even take a sip of water. She immediately went to Long Fei Yi. After understanding the situation with Long Fei Yi, she split up with him. It was much easier for Han Yunxi to find the poisonous snakes than it was for Long Fei Yi. She didn't need to use special medicine to lure them out. She only needed to activate the detoxification system to find the location of the snakes. It wasn't until the afternoon of the next day that all the work was basically done. "Your Highness, there are 375 dead, 130 wounded, and 171 who recovered by taking medicine. Feiyun managed to save 29 people. We've already notified the families of the deceased and arranged for them to be comforted. The injured have all been arranged to recuperate in East Camp. All officers and soldiers in the camp have taken the antidote as a precaution." With that, Bailey Yuanlong fell to his knees. "This general has disobeyed military orders and caused a great disaster. Please punish me, Your Highness." Long Fei Yi sat on the tiger-skin chair and leaned forward. His fingers were interlocked and pressed against his lips as he stared at Bailey Yuanlong with deep, cold eyes. He didn't say anything for a long while. Han Yunxi sat to the side, holding a dead white-lipped Krite in her hand. She seemed to be studying something and didn't pay any attention to Bailey Yuanlong. Seeing that His Highness didn't say anything, Bailey Yuanlong glanced at Han Yunxi, his eyes gloomy. "Do you regret it?" Long Fei suddenly asked coldly. Bailey Yuanlong was alarmed. He felt that His Highness's black eyes could see through him with a single glance. He hesitated for a long time, but still didn't answer. There were only the three of them in the large tent. It was so quiet that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. The quieter it was, the more nervous Bailey Yuanlong became. He wanted nothing more than for His Highness to give him a few slaps and kicks, but he couldn't withstand His Highness's silence and scrutiny. Long Fei Yi only asked one question. Bailey Yuanlong didn't answer, so he didn't ask again. He silently waved his hand, indicating for Bailey Yuanlong to withdraw. "Your Highness," Bailey Yuanlong had a lot to say, but he didn't know what to say. In the end, he remained silent. He didn't leave and just knelt there, waiting. Long Fei Yi slowly narrowed his eyes and clenched his hands into fists. Bailey Yuanlong could feel his anger and lowered his head to wait for the storm. Han Yunxi seemed to have sensed something and looked up. It was at this time that Su Donglin suddenly ran in. "Your Highness, Princess, those snakes have gone crazy. Quickly go take a look." Last night, in addition to the 600 or so snakes that had been killed on the spot, there were still 300 that were imprisoned alive. The reason they hadn't been killed was because Han Yunshi wanted to use them as bait to find the snake den. The white-lipped kite was very similar to ants in their social habits. Not only did they live in groups, but they also had a snake queen in charge of giving birth. Unlike the ant queen, the snake queen not only had a terrifying venom, but also a very powerful attack. The camp was still here and hadn't been attacked by the snakes. There had to be a reason for the sudden attack last night. Either someone had malicious intentions, or the snake den was nearby and had been accidentally provoked. No matter what the reason was, they had to find the snake queen as soon as possible. Otherwise, after she and Long Fei Yi left, no one in the camp could resist the snake queen's venom. It must be the snake queen summoning them. Let's go take a look, Han Yunshi said seriously. Long Fei Yi ignored Bailey Yuanlong and strode out with Han Yunshi, hurrying to West Camp. Bailey Yuanlong hesitated for a moment, but still chased after them. West Camp was empty apart from the corpses. The dead snakes were piled up in a pile, while the living ones were tied up in metal cages. They were crazily climbing and gnawing at the metal cages, spitting out poisonous gas from time to time. Han Yunshi hadn't even gotten close when she sensed that something was wrong. She stopped Long Fei Yi and the others. Don't get too close, there's poison. She stopped Long Fei Yi and the others, but got very close herself. Long Fei Yi was quite dissatisfied. In front of Bailey Yuanlong and several shadow guard, he tugged at Han Yunshi's clothes from behind. He didn't say anything, but everyone knew that he didn't want Han Yunshi to go any closer. Han Yunshi turned back and smiled, whispering, "It's fine, I'll take care of all the poisons that attack me." After cultivating to the second level of the poison storage space, she was basically immune to all poisons. She wasn't afraid of any poison. Han Yunshi got close to the metal cage and closed her eyes, as if she was smelling the poisonous gas in the air. Long Fei Yi and the others watched from behind. Even Long Fei Yi didn't dare to disturb her, let alone the others. After a while, Han Yunshi opened her eyes and suddenly got close to the metal cage. At that moment, a white-lipped kite suddenly came over and opened its mouth. "Careful!" Long Fei Yi pulled Han Yunshi back and scolded, "You're crazy." "I'm fine." "Really? The metal cage can't stop it from biting me," Han Yunshi said helplessly. She hated being disturbed when she was working. Unfortunately, the one disturbing her was Long Fei Yi, so she could only endure her temper. "What are you doing?" Long Fei Yi asked. "There are two kinds of poisons in the air. One is the poison released by the Snake Queen and the other is the poison released by these poisonous snakes. The two poisons have different characteristics, but they can find each other in the air and combine to create a new poison that can spread to a radius of 100 li," Han Yunshi said as she gently pushed Long Fei Yi's hand away and moved closer to the metal cage. "The Snake Queen's poison is very strong. Before the snake's poison can spread, the Snake Queen's poison has already found them. There's already a new poison in the metal cage and it's starting to spread. Then won't everyone be poisoned?" Bailey Yuanlong anxiously asked. The East Qin army wasn't just stationed here. There were several scattered camps scattered over a radius of 100 li. Moreover, after the ceasefire, there were more and more civilians returning to their homes. If the poison spread, the consequences would be unimaginable. Bailey Yuanlong regretted his words as soon as they left his mouth. It would be strange if Han Yunshi didn't take the opportunity to ridicule him. Who would have thought that Han Yunshi wouldn't waste words and said coldly, "They won't. This poison is their communication signal and is equivalent to human language. It won't hurt anyone. General Bailey, don't worry." Bailey Yuanlong was a bit embarrassed. He nodded and didn't say anything else. Based on the poison, this Snake Queen must be over 100 years old. It won't be easy to deal with, Han Yunshi said seriously. Princess, the giant python you and His Highness killed was said to be over 1,000 years old. How could a mere 100-years-old snake queen not be easy to deal with? Bailey Mingxiang couldn't help but ask. It's easy to deal with, but the group of snakes guarding it isn't. Han Yunshi sighed. You mean? There are still poisonous snakes in the snake cave. Long Fei Yi was shocked. Yes. Han Yunshi nodded. A snake cave with 100-years-old snake queen must have more than 1,000 poisonous snakes. I'm afraid it's as rare as phoenix feathers and qilin horns. Once the poison spreads and the snake queen senses it, they'll probably swarm out in full force. This is the white-lipped kite, which is very difficult to deal with. Only then did everyone understand what was going on. Princess, then can we control the poison and prevent it from spreading? Su Donglin asked anxiously. It'll be fine if we just kill these poisonous snakes. But if we do that, we won't be able to find out where the snake cave is, nor will we be able to find out why these snakes are attacking the camp. There will be no end to the trouble. Han Yunshi said seriously. Bailey Yuanlong, go arrange for people to assist at any time, Long Fei Yi immediately ordered. However, Han Yunshi stopped him. No need, I can go alone. She turned to look at Long Fei Yi. You don't have to go either. Chapter 872. He didn't have to go either. This was the first time in Long Fei Ye's life that someone had said something like that to him. No matter what it was, everyone was always asking him to go, hoping that he would go, begging him to go. This woman, on the other hand, actually told him that he didn't have to go. Long Fei Yi raised an eyebrow and asked in return, "Are you sure?" How was he asking her a question? His tone was a blatant threat, a warning. If Han Yunshi answered yes, he definitely wouldn't be polite. Unexpectedly, Han Yunshi didn't get it. Her face was still serious and solemn. I'm sure. That snake cave is too dangerous. I can go alone, but it'll be very dangerous for all of you. For a moment, the whole place quieted down. Everyone looked at Long Fei Yi. Even Bailey Yuanlong felt uneasy. He had to admit that he still admired Han Yunshi very much. She's too daring. She's probably the only person in the world who dares to speak to His Highness like that. What she meant was that His Highness would be a hindrance and drag her down if he followed her. Long Fei Ye's tongue lightly touched the corner of his mouth. His cold eyes narrowed slightly, as if he wanted to say something, but he didn't say anything. He just stared at Han Yunshi. Once Han Yunshi got into her work mode, she was absolutely serious and devoted. She was also absolutely realistic and realistic. Long Fei didn't understand poisons, so he really would be a hindrance. Moreover, she alone was enough to deal with the entire poison den. The poison storage space was infinitely large. She only needed to follow the poisonous gas to find the location of the poison cave, and she could take down the entire snake cave with a little effort. She was already working hard to advance to the third stage of the poison storage space, so she wouldn't be dizzy and faint like before. However, as the place grew quieter and quieter, the dangerous aura in Long Fei Ye's eyes grew stronger. Han Yunshi finally sensed that something was wrong with the atmosphere. She sensed the cold scrutiny in Long Fei Ye's eyes. She clearly didn't do anything wrong, but she inexplicably felt guilty. You, why don't, Long Fei Yi watched, waited, and listened with great interest. Actually, I can. I have a way to deal with the poison cave, and it's very safe. If you follow me, actually, Han Yunshi wanted to explain tactfully, but under Long Fei Ye's threatening and playful gaze, she couldn't speak properly. Long Fei Yi took a step forward and was very close to her. He looked down at her from above. He was obviously urging her, but his tone was very patient. Actually what? Actually, you won't be of any help even if you go. Instead, you'll affect me. Who told you to not know poison? It's obviously your own problem. Why are you looking at me like that? Han Yunxi didn't dare to say it out loud. Long Fei Yi approached her again. Han Yunxi immediately stepped back, because if she didn't step back, Long Fei Yi would touch her body. With his attitude, if she didn't give him a clear explanation today, he wouldn't let her go in front of everyone. Your Highness, this matter needs to be considered at length. Han Yunxi said in a serious tone. What she meant was that the two of them should go to the side and discuss it in private. In private, she just had to act coquettishly and he might agree. The poison gas is already spreading, so we can't delay. Are you sure you want to go alone? Long Fei Yi rejected her implication as he walked forward. Han Yunxi continued to step back. She only felt that this fellow's tall figure was pressing down on her to the point that she almost couldn't breathe. It wasn't that she disliked him for being a burden, but there really wasn't a need for him to go. 1,000 poisonous snakes were rare, but 100-years-old Snake Queen had at least 10,000 poisonous snakes by her side. Even if he took the antidote in advance, it wouldn't be able to prevent this from happening. Wasn't she just worried about his safety? Han Yunxi frowned as she looked at Long Fei Yi. She was full of words, but she didn't know what to say. Long Fei Yi looked at Han Yunxi and didn't ask any more questions as he continued to approach her. He walked forward step by step while she walked back step by step. The two of them walked forward and retreated like this, forgetting about the people around them. However, the people around them were all watching without blinking. Su Donglin and the shadow guards kept exchanging glances. They wanted to laugh, but didn't dare to. They often made bets in private about who would be able to control the other between His Highness and the princess, and who would be more afraid of who. Brother Su, when do you think the princess will be able to control His Highness until he's obedient? A shadow guard whispered. Traitor. Su Donglin spat. Brother Su, if the princess can control His Highness until he's obedient, then we'll also benefit, right? The shadow guard smiled. Compared to His Highness, the princess took care of her subordinates too much. When Bailey Mingxiang heard Su Donglin and the others' discussion, he couldn't help but bite his lip. No one knew what he was thinking. Bailey Yuanlong blew his beard and glared. The more he looked, the angrier he became. These two were really too much. Although there were no outsiders in the military camp, and although Han Yunxi was disguised as a guard, they still couldn't flirt in public like this. What kind of scandal was this? It was simply a disgrace to the military's prestige. Your Highness, the situation is urgent. Please make a decision as soon as possible. Bailey Yuanlong couldn't help but remind him loudly. Long Fei Ye's tall figure blocked Han Yunxi's line of sight. She took a big step back and glanced sideways at Bailey Yuanlong. Seeing that he was a bit far away, she whispered, Long Fei Yi, stop messing around. Long Fei Yi ignored Bailey Yuanlong and said coldly, Han Yunxi, this crown prince will ask you one last time. Are you sure this crown prince doesn't need to go? Han Yunxi sighed inwardly. Although she was afraid, she still went all out for this guy's safety. I'm sure. Before she could finish speaking, Long Fei Yi took another step forward. She reflexively looked down and saw the tip of his foot pressing against hers. Han Yunxi took another step back, but her back suddenly hit the outer wall of the tent. There was nowhere to run. Long Fei Yi took one last step forward and leaned against the outer wall with one hand. He lowered his head and finally lowered his incomparably sexy voice, so low that only Han Yunshi could hear it. He said, Han Yunshi, are you sure you want to try? Han Yunshi was about to cry. Only today did she realize how much of a bastard Long Fei Yi was. You're threatening a woman. Shameless. She angrily cursed in a low voice. I'm only threatening you. He had an indifferent look on his face. Is it not a threat if you're only threatening me? It's also shameless. Han Yunshi retorted. I'm only shameless to you. Long Fei Yi said again. Are you not shameless just because you're shameless to me? You scoundrel. Han Yunshi cursed again. Long Fei Yi calmly said, I'm only shameless to you. Han Yunshi was about to speak, but she suddenly stopped. She realized that if they continued arguing like this, it would simply be an endless loop. Long Fei Yi's hand on the wall fell onto her shoulder and gently patted it. Let's go. The poison gas has already spread. Hurry up. Han Yunshi was very depressed and unwilling. Why was it like this every time? She was always suppressed by him. She thought that this time the situation was urgent, so she wouldn't argue with him. Next time, she would definitely fight to the end. You can go, but you have to listen to me. This was Han Yunshi's final insistence. Okay. Long Fei Yi readily agreed. After the two of them had finished their private discussion, Long Fei Yi turned to look at everyone and said coldly, Bailey Yuanlong, make arrangements for the aftermath. Su Donglin, bring your subordinates and follow me. Yes. Su Donglin was overjoyed and finally moved with His Highness and the princess. Bailey Yuanlong, however, knelt down and said seriously, Your Highness, this general requests to go with you and avenge our dead brothers. Long Fei Yi pretended not to hear and turned to leave. Only the heavens knew how angry he was at Bailey Yuanlong's mistake. Bailey Yuanlong hurriedly chased after him and knelt in front of Long Fei Yi to block his way. Your Highness, this general will die 10,000 times without hesitation. I don't ask for merit to make up for my mistakes. I only ask to avenge my brothers and comfort their souls. I beg your Highness to grant my wish. Han Yunshi didn't say anything. She subconsciously looked down and felt that with Long Fei Yi's temper, he would probably send him flying with a kick. He was the most terrifying when he was silent. However, just as Long Fei Yi was about to flip out, Bailey Mingxiang suddenly rushed over and knelt beside her father. Your Highness, my father is the head of the army. Whether he made a mistake or not, he should personally go to the Snake Cave and resolve the crisis for the soldiers. This is his responsibility, as well as my mermaid clan's responsibility to the East Qin army. He no longer has this right. Long Fei Yi finally spoke. Your Highness. Bailey Yuanlong was greatly shocked and repeatedly kowtowed. Bailey Mingxiang couldn't refute and kept kowtowing with her father. Han Yunshi's eyes flashed with impatience as she coldly said, Long Fei Yi, this trip to the Snake Cave is very dangerous. We can't let him get away with it. I need someone to lead the charge. If he's not afraid, then let him come. Bailey Yuanlong immediately raised his head. This general is not afraid. I beg your Highness to grant my wish. Bailey Mingxiang was greatly shocked. Her father didn't understand poison at all and his martial arts were only average. If he led the charge, he would undoubtedly die. She quickly sent a pleading look to Han Yunshi, but unfortunately, Han Yunshi didn't even look at her. Are you sure? Long Fei Yi asked Han Yunshi. I'm sure. I'm just afraid he won't dare when the time comes, Han Yunshi replied. Even if it's a mountain of blades or a sea of flames, I won't shy away from 10,000 deaths. Bailey Yuanlong's attitude was clear as he ignored Bailey Mingxiang who kept tugging on his sleeve. Long Fei Yi didn't say anything else as he pulled Han Yunxi away. Bailey Yuanlong was overjoyed and quickly chased after them. Bailey Mingxiang followed beside him, anxiously advising, "Father, His Highness is still angry. It'll be fine once he cools down. The East Qin army is still counting on you to lead it. Father made a big mistake this time. What's the use of His Highness calming down?" Bailey Yuanlong blamed himself. In fact, when His Highness asked him if he regretted it, his answer was no. Even if he blamed himself, he still didn't regret it. It was for no other reason than that he couldn't take such a big risk. He had weighed the risks. The risk of the entire army being wiped out was the risk of testing the medicine first, while the risk of stalling for time was the sacrifice of several hundred soldiers. Han Yunxi was the princess of Western Qin in the end. He couldn't be completely unguarded like His Highness. "Father, why are you sulking with the princess? When we reach the snake cave, you should give in a little. The princess is magnanimous and definitely won't make things difficult for you," Bailey Mingxiang advised. The princess' poison skills were exquisite and she dared to go to the snake cave alone. How could she really need someone to lead the charge? The princess must have been angry at father's distrust, so she deliberately said that. Bailey Yuanlong angrily glared at Bailey Mingxiang. "You want this general to give in to the princess of Western Qin? Humph, no way." Chapter 873. Faced with Bailey Yuanlong's stubbornness, even someone as good-tempered as Bailey Mingxiang was about to get angry. "Father, if something happens to you, who will lead our East Qin army?" Bailey Yuanlong's eyes flashed with bitterness. His Highness has his own plans. Han Yunxi had made things difficult for him, but His Highness had acquiesced. Could he still continue to lead the East Qin army? Not long ago, he had threatened His Highness with retiring and returning home, but he never thought that he would end up like this. "Father." Bailey Mingxiang's heart ached. She had never seen her father this helpless and sad. Bailey Yuanlong looked as if he was facing death. He thought that dying to avenge his brothers was better than being demoted after returning to camp and losing face. "It's all because of these poisonous snakes." Bailey Mingxiang was about to cry. Facing her father in danger, facing life and death, no matter how gentle her temperament was, she would still be anxious. She really hoped that the princess wasn't serious. Bailey Yuanlong suddenly looked over and muttered to himself, everything was fine, so why did this snake disaster come so suddenly? "The princess just said that we can only find out when we reach the snake den," Bailey Mingxiang replied. Bailey Yuanlong was silent for a while, then said in a low voice, "If she wants to attract poisonous snakes, it's only a matter of thought." "Sure. Father." Bailey Mingxiang was shocked, afraid that the two in front of her would hear. If it weren't for her father's distrust, today's disaster wouldn't have happened. Bailey Yuanlong wasn't afraid. After pondering for a while, he said, "If even 1,000 poisonous snakes are rare, then how big is the snake den? If such a big den really came out in full force, no matter how high her poison skills are, how can she deal with it alone? If she doesn't let everyone follow, I'm afraid." "Father, don't make wild guesses," Bailey Mingxiang angrily interrupted. She had never forced herself to lose her temper in front of her father. This was the first time. "Mingxiang, don't forget that she's a Western Qin princess. If she knew she was a Western Qin princess, she might not have saved your life back then," Bailey Yuanlong reminded her. "Father. What about you? You're a girl, what do you know? She treats you well, so you." "Father, I believe in His Highness." Bailey Mingxiang interrupted Bailey Yuanlong. "Father also believes in your Highness, but one must always be on guard against others." I am shouldering the lives of tens of thousands of East Qin soldiers. Father cannot afford to gamble, Bailey Yuanlong said coldly. Bailey Mingxiang simply turned his head away, not wanting to say anything more. Bailey Yuanlong also ignored him and immersed himself in his own speculations. Han Yunxi and Long Feiyi walked at the front, following the poisonous gas all the way to the forest west of the military camp. After walking for 5 miles, they still hadn't found a snake cave. It's so far away. Even if the snake den is disturbed, they might not be able to find the barracks, right? Han Yunxi whispered. The white-lipped Krite wouldn't attack people for no reason. It was either lured out by someone or disturbed. She originally thought that the snake cave was not too far away from the military camp, and suspected that the daily activities of the military camp had interfered with the snake cave. But now, it seemed that this snake disaster was more like a man-made one. The surrounding villagers didn't show any signs of being poisoned, but all the snakes outside 5 miles are heading towards the barracks. Strange. Long Feiyi was clearly suspicious. At this time, Han Yunxi's detox system sent out an alarm, causing her to abruptly stop. What's wrong? Long Feiyi asked. Bailey Yuanlong and Bailey Mingxiang also stopped. The shadow guard following them on both sides also stopped. There's poison in front. Everyone stay where you are. Han Yunxi was about to walk forward when Long Feiyi pulled her back. She helplessly said, It's not a snake cave. It's not far ahead. You can see me. It's fine. I'll go take care of it. I'll be right back. Only then did Long Feiyi let go. Just as Han Yunxi had been vexed before, he was also vexed at this moment. If only he knew the art of poison. Han Yunxi didn't go far. Her figure was always within Long Feiyi's line of sight. She was looking for something in the grass, but no one knew what she was looking for. Soon, she stood up and waved at Long Feiyi. Stay half a mile away from me. Keep up. Why? Long Feiyi shouted. Han Yunxi smiled happily. She didn't know if Long Feiyi saw her smile clearly. She said, You promised to listen to me. Just do as I say. Long Feiyi couldn't help but laugh. The smile on his face was extremely beautiful, and he didn't know if Han Yunxi saw it clearly. In the past, he would never have agreed. But now, with his martial arts skills, he could guarantee her safety as long as she was within his line of sight. He waved a hand at Han Yunxi, indicating for her to continue forward. He agreed. Han Yunxi walked forward, occasionally crouching on the ground to look for or pick up something. Long Feiyi was curious, but Bailey Yuanlong was even more suspicious. After another 5 li, Han Yunxi finally stopped. Long Feiyi and the others caught up and saw a giant pit not far ahead. Although it wasn't as big as the poison sect's forbidden grounds, it wasn't small either. They were about 10 meters away from the pit. Han Yunxi was very certain. The snake den. We've arrived. Long Feiyi didn't sense anything, but Han Yunxi could sense the thick poison aura from far away. The detox system checked the poison level of the entire snake den and compared it with the poison level of an ordinary white-lipped Krite. It estimated that there were at least 20,000 poisonous snakes in this den. It was twice as frightening as Han Yunxi had predicted. Moreover, under the influence of the poisonous gas in the air, the entire bottom of the snake cave was boiling. Thousands of poisonous snakes were crazily climbing up along the cave walls. Even the snake queen, who was hiding at the bottom, was restless, constantly spewing out poisonous gas. Even a poison master at Han Yunxi's level was alarmed. She was incomparably glad that she'd cultivated to the second level of her poison storage space. Otherwise, even if Long Fei Yi called all of his shadow guard to help, they might not be able to do anything to this giant pit. She collected all the information she could, then turned to the others and said seriously, "This pit is 20 meters deep. There are 20,000 poisonous snakes and one snake queen." At this point, everyone's expression changed. What kind of concept was a snake queen among 10,000 poisonous snakes? Even if they weren't afraid of poison, they wouldn't be able to kill them all. Once the poisonous snakes escaped the den and ran to the military camp, it would be even more difficult to find them. Han Yunqi's antidote had a time limit. If it wasn't replenished in time, they wouldn't be able to guard against this batch of poisonous snakes. Long Fei Yi frowned and walked to her side. However, Han Yunqi still pushed him aside and pushed him to the side of Bailey Yuanlong and his daughter. She continued, "They've already smelled the poison aura and are all crawling up. I think they'll be able to climb up soon. We're in a very dangerous situation and we don't have much time. I'll say it one last time. Listen to me, or you'll have to bear the consequences." Han Yunqi stood alone at the edge of the snake den, her expression serious and cold. Her whole body exuded an inviolable authority. Even the dissatisfied and suspicious Bailey Yuanlong was intimidated and didn't say a word. A complicated look flitted across Long Fei Yi's eyes. He said seriously, "Okay, be careful." Han Yunqi nodded. She took out a few packets of antidote and handed them to the 20 poison guards beside her. She had handpicked these 20 poison guards from the Shadow Guard and personally taught them the art of poison. They could still come in handy at a critical moment. There might be poisonous snakes escaping later. The 5 of you protect His Highness and the others. Retreat another 50 meters and be very careful. Understand? Han Yunqi instructed seriously. Although they had taken the antidote before coming here as a precaution, she wasn't sure how long it would take for her to store such a large poison den into her poison storage space. The largest thing she had ever stored was the poison pool. However, the pool was one entity, while there were 20,000 poisonous snakes in the den. The queen wasn't one entity. She was confident that she could subdue this den of poisonous snakes, but she had no experience and couldn't anticipate unexpected situations. Therefore, she had to make ample preparations to protect Long Fei Yi and the others. After Long Fei Yi and the others retreated, Han Yunqi had the remaining poison guards spread out and surround the den. She left only one poison guard by her side. Try not to let the poisonous snakes escape. Fight poison with poison, understand? Han Yunqi asked. Understood. Don't worry, mistress. Everyone answered in unison. After everything was arranged, Han Yunqi turned to look at Long Fei Yi, only to see Long Fei Yi staring at her with a frown. She smiled faintly, but he was still serious. She gave him a reassuring look, then decisively turned around and closed her eyes. It was extremely quiet all around. Those with good hearing could already hear the sound of rustling coming closer and closer from the den. Long Fei Yi couldn't understand how Han Yunqi was going to deal with this den of poisonous snakes. Was she going to fight poison with poison and kill them with poison? Or was she going to store them in her poison storage space? How was she going to store them? Bailey Yuanlong and Bailey Mingxiang were also curious, waiting to see what Han Yunqi was going to do. Even Bailey Mingxiang didn't quite believe that she could deal with so many poisonous snakes alone, and Bailey Yuanlong became even more vigilant. After a short while, Han Yunqi whispered to the poison guard beside her, "I'm ready, go down." Yes. The poison guard accepted the order, then suddenly grabbed Han Yunqi and jumped down into the den with her. In an instant, her figure disappeared from Long Fei Yi's sight. "Han Yunqi, what are you doing?" Long Fei Yi roared, unable to restrain his anger. He chased after her without even thinking. Bailey Yuanlong seemed to realize something and also chased after her in shock. Your Highness, be careful of a trap. Your Highness, this is a trap. A trap. The snake den was so far away, but it could affect the military camp. Han Yunxi didn't let His Highness come at first, but now she jumped down herself. Her actions were strange, and it was clear that she wanted to lure His Highness into the den. This was definitely a trap. Long Fei Yi and Bailey Yuanlong's figures quickly disappeared into the den. Su Donglin panicked and didn't know what to do. The princess had ordered them not to move, but His Highness had already chased after them. What should they do? After a moment of hesitation, he let everyone chase after them. Bailey Mingxiang chased them to the edge of the cliff, so anxious that she forgot etiquette and shouted, Your Highness. Father. Don't cause trouble for the princess. No one answered Bailey Mingxiang. She steeled her heart and also jumped down. However, when she reached the bottom of the den, she didn't see a single snake. She saw His Highness supporting the princess and leaning against the wall. Her father and Su Donglin were all looking around, as confused as she was. Where were the snakes? Chapter 874. Where were the snakes? Everyone looked at Han Yunxi, waiting for her answer. Han Yunxi was supported by Long Fei Yi with one hand and covered her mouth with the other. Her face was deathly pale, as if she would vomit if she opened her mouth. She couldn't speak at all. Long Fei Yi was the fastest. When he chased after them, Han Yunxi and the poison guards hadn't reached the bottom of the cave yet. He saw that the walls were densely packed with venomous snakes. They were so densely packed that he couldn't tell which snake's head and which snake's body belonged to which snake. They were all intertwined with each other. Their flat heads were densely packed together, and they were all sticking out their red tongues. It had to be said that Long Fei Yi almost vomited when he saw this scene. As soon as he saw them, they all leaped from the cliff towards Han Yunxi, wanting to attack Han Yunxi. At the same time, the poisonous snakes at the bottom of the cave continuously spewed poisonous gas upwards. Almost all of the poisonous snakes in the cave pounced on Han Yunxi. However, this scene only lasted for an instant. Before he could snatch the person from the poison guard's hands, all the poisonous snakes had disappeared without a trace. When he landed at the bottom of the cave with Han Yunxi, not a single snake was seen. He couldn't even scold Han Yunxi because she kept retching as soon as she landed. She was only feeling better now. Seeing that she was uncomfortable, his temper flared up. However, no matter how angry he was, he suppressed it and asked in a low voice, You put them in your poison storage space. What happened to you? Han Yunxi wanted to answer, but couldn't help but retch as soon as she opened her mouth. She hurriedly waved her hand, indicating for them to leave. Seeing that no one moved, she panicked. All of you leave, quick. I can't hold on any longer. Quick. As soon as she finished speaking, she really threw up. It was a complete mess, but she didn't forget to wave her hand as she vomited, indicating for everyone to leave. All of you, go up and wait. Long Fei Yi said coldly. He supported Han Yunxi and patted her back. He understood that too many people would only get in the way. Su Donglin and the poison guards didn't dare disobey and immediately retreated. Bailey Yuanlong and his daughter, however, didn't leave. Your Highness, what's going on? Bailey Yuanlong asked anxiously. Han Yunxi held back her disgust. She looked anxious and couldn't say anything. She just waved her hand vigorously and asked them to leave. She pushed Long Fei Yi away and asked him to leave too. Your Highness, let's go. Bailey Yuanlong was very decisive. This matter was too strange, and the smell of a conspiracy was too strong. Han Yunqi had even said that he would be the vanguard. Who knew things would develop like this? No matter what the situation was, leaving this damned place was the way to go. You two leave immediately. Long Fei Yi was furious. Bailey Mingxiang hurriedly pulled his father back, but Bailey Yuanlong waved his hand away. Your Highness, Princess, let's leave together. This isn't a place to stay for long. Han Yunqi's eyes blazed with anger. She suddenly pushed Long Fei Yi towards Bailey Yuanlong. Long Fei Yi, go. I don't have time to explain things to you. Long Fei Yi couldn't do it. It was at this time that Han Yunqi finally couldn't take it anymore. Her elegant brows furrowed, and there was a sudden boom behind her that shook heaven and earth, kicking up a large cloud of dust. Han Yunqi suddenly fell to her knees, unable to care about anything else as she threw up. It was too disgusting. As soon as the 20,000 poisonous snakes and the giant python-like snake queen entered the poison storage space, they filled the entire space and moved around in a dense mass. Even if it was only beneficial to the poison storage space, she really couldn't take it anymore. She couldn't ignore it. Her mind was filled with snakes, densely intertwined snake bodies that stood up to form clumps of snake heads. She really felt like her body and mind were about to be filled with snakes. Heavens! Han Yunqi would have gone crazy if she'd held it in a little longer. She was fully prepared, but she didn't expect this. She didn't expect to be disgusted by these poisonous snakes. This was definitely the biggest failure in her career, in the history of glory battle. Snake, Bailey Mingxiang suddenly screamed. At this time, the cloud of dust had already dispersed, revealing a huge fog behind Han Yunqi. It was a giant python-like white-lipped kite that was as tall as 3 people. Han Yunqi, who was lying on the ground, looked especially small. This was the snake queen of the snake den. Its eyes were demonic red, and its tongue flicked out. The most disgusting thing was that its body was covered in poisonous snakes. Han Yunqi really couldn't take it anymore. She could only release the snake queen and some of the poisonous snakes to make herself feel better. She also had the detoxification system quickly turn the poisonous snakes into medicine and poison. In any case, as long as a poisonous snake attacked her, it would be absorbed into her poison storage space. At most, she would feel a little disgusted. At most, she would repeat the process a few times. The detoxification system would always be able to turn these poisonous snakes into medicine. However, Long Fei Yi and the others were in danger here. Not to mention the poisonous snakes she released, just the snake den itself was filled with poisonous gas. Although they'd all taken the antidote had a time limit, and the medicine might not be enough to overcome the poison in the den. In short, it was too troublesome. When the snake queen was released, it was still in a daze. When it heard Bailey Mingxiang scream, it went crazy and pounced on Bailey Mingxiang. Han Yunqi panicked. Long Fei Yi, let her go, quickly. Before Long Fei Yi could make a move, Bailey Mingxiang, who was closest to Bailey Mingxiang, pulled her away. The snake queen pounced on empty air and hit the ground. It immediately turned around and glared at them like a tiger watching its prey. The poisonous snakes hanging from its body fell to the ground, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Long Fei Yi, you know about the poison storage space. Go. I'll be fine. There's a hole in this snake den. I have to keep it, otherwise they'll escape. Han Yunqi suppressed her temper and said seriously. Bailey Yuanlong, take your daughter away. This is an order. Long Fei Yi said sternly. He wouldn't leave. Although he didn't know any poison techniques, his speed was enough to escape. He could even deal with Jun Yixia, so what could a snake queen do? He couldn't leave Han Yunqi here alone. No matter how capable she was, he couldn't be at ease. Moreover, Han Yunxi had been unconscious for several days after receiving the poison pond. How could he be at ease? Wasn't she feeling unwell right now? Moreover, this snake disaster was deliberately caused by someone. What if there were other ambushes in the den? Mingxiang, leave. If His Highness doesn't leave, I won't leave either. Bailey Yuanlong said coldly. If you don't leave, Mingxiang won't leave either. Bailey Mingxiang also became stubborn. As soon as he finished speaking, the Snake Queen suddenly attacked again. Although it was big, it moved very quickly. It had to be said that it was very smart. It didn't attack Han Yunxi or Long Feiyi, but attacked the Bailey father and daughter instead. Bailey Yuanlong didn't have time to dodge. Fortunately, Long Feiyi pushed him away with a palm. He and Bailey Mingxiang were thrown to the side. If the Snake Queen didn't attack Han Yunxi wouldn't be able to deal with it. It was so big that it would be very difficult to kill it with poison. Only Long Feiyi could deal with it. When the Snake Queen saw the father and daughter fall, it immediately turned its head to face Long Feiyi and swept its tail toward the father and daughter. Han Yunxi was almost driven mad by this pair of father and daughter. The Snake Queen was smarter than them. How could Bailey Yuanlong and Bailey Mingxiang deal with a Snake Queen with their martial arts? Han Yunxi resisted the nausea and suddenly rushed toward the father and daughter. No one expected her to do this. Even the Snake Queen was very surprised. Its huge tail was about to attack Bailey Yuanlong, but it suddenly stopped. It was obvious that the Snake Queen was very afraid of Han Yunxi. The father and daughter were protected by Han Yunxi. The Snake Queen made a prompt decision to attack Long Feiyi. Its huge body rushed over in an instant, and it even spat out a cloud of poisonous gas. Long Feiyi, be careful. Han Yunxi was greatly alarmed. She threw several needles at the Snake Queen, but thin needles couldn't do anything to such a huge creature. Bailey Yuanlong and his daughter were also shocked. Bailey Yuanlong threw caution to the wind and ruthlessly stabbed his sword into the snake's tail. Han Yunxi couldn't stop him in time. This stab couldn't harm the Snake Queen's life at all. It would only agitate it. Sure enough, the Snake Queen seemed to have gone mad. Its tail swung wildly and swept around. Han Yunxi was so angry that she wanted to curse. The snake's tail attack wasn't a poison attack. Even the poison storage space couldn't protect her. Bailey Mingxiang and Bailey Yuanlong were martial artists and could still dodge, but she didn't know what to do. Just as the snake's huge tail was about to swing toward her, a black shadow passed through the Snake Queen's poisonous gas and flew over. Who else could it be but Long Feiyi? Almost at the same time he pulled Han Yunxi away, the snake's tail swung down and smashed a huge hole in the wall. Long Feiyi and Han Yunxi fell to the right of the snake's tail, while Bailey Yuanlong and Bailey Mingxiang fell to the left. Bailey Yuanlong hurriedly got up. Your Highness, are you all right? Long Feiyi was furious. Get out of here right now, or I'll kill you. Long Feiyi had been poisoned, and it was very deep. His ice-cold eyes flickered with a frightening chill, causing the Bailey father and daughter to tremble. However, when the father and daughter saw his black lips, they couldn't leave. Just as they were speaking, the snake's tail suddenly rose up. It was so fast that everyone was stunned. Long Feiyi's reaction was the fastest. He immediately retreated while protecting Han Yunxi. Long Feiyi, there's no other way. Let's go up first. Han Yunxi could only use the last resort. There was no other way to let the Snake Queen escape. However, as soon as she said this, her face turned pale. The detoxification system was reminding her that she had to immediately detoxify Long Feiyi. Otherwise, he would end up like those soldiers who couldn't be saved in time. Even if Long Fei Yi took the antidote, he wouldn't be able to resist the Snake Queen's poison. The Snake Queen's poison was several times stronger than half of the snakes. Detoxify. Long Fei Yi. Han Yunqi panicked, her hands trembling. She wouldn't panic in the face of anything, but facing Long Fei Yi alone, she couldn't imagine what the world would be like without this man. She panicked and took out 3 portions of antidote for Long Fei Yi to take. Long Fei Yi, you have to detoxify the poison immediately, or else you'll die. On the side, Bailey Yuanlong and Bailey Mingxiang were also stunned when they heard this. Right at this moment, the Snake Queen's position suddenly swung fiercely at Han Yunqi and the others. Long Fei Yi hugged Han Yunqi and wanted to dodge, but Han Yunqi unexpectedly pushed him away fiercely. In an instant, the snake's tail swung fiercely at Han Yunqi's legs. Han Yunqi instantly fell to the ground, paralyzed. With this kind of strength, it would be strange if the bones in her legs didn't break. Everyone was shocked. Long Fei Yi didn't recover for a moment. He never thought that Han Yunqi would push him away. Was she stupid? Although he was poisoned, he still had his martial arts. Her legs were in so much pain that she couldn't speak. She never thought she'd be able to endure such pain. She shouted, "Long Fei, you can't circulate your qi or get angry. Otherwise, the poison will spread faster and no one will be able to save you. I beg you." So. Chapter 875. So this was the reason Han Yunqi had pushed Long Fei Yi away. In such an urgent situation, she had no choice at all. If she hadn't pushed him away just now, he would have been done for. Long Fei Yi looked at the woman he doted on, paralyzed in front of him, but he was powerless to do anything about it. His deep eyes burned with anger, as if they would never be extinguished. The sword in his hand seemed to sense his anger, clanging loudly. "Long Fei Yi, I beg you. I beg you." Han Yunqi was on the verge of tears. She was afraid that if he acted impulsively, everything would be irreparable. Bailey Yuanlong and Bailey Mingxiang were dumbstruck. They never expected this outcome. What reason did Bailey Yuanlong have to suspect Han Yunqi? Han Yunqi's leg was broken. Broken. The Snake Queen didn't pity anyone. Seeing that Han Yunqi was injured and Long Fei Yi wasn't moving, the cunning Snake Queen seemed to sense something. She turned around and attacked Han Yunqi with her tail. At this moment, Bailey Yuanlong flew over and pulled Han Yunqi away. He flew towards Long Fei Yi and yelled, "Mingxiang, go get reinforcements." Bailey Mingxiang came to her senses and immediately flew up, shouting, "Su Donglin! Su Donglin!" However, a venomous snake leaped out of the cliff and pounced on her. She screamed in fright and fell down. Only then did she realize that the venomous snakes that had been hanging on the Snake Queen's body had all climbed up the cliff. Bailey Mingxiang was afraid of snakes. She was very, very afraid. However, she resolutely flew up again. By this time, the Snake Queen had already launched another attack. Bailey Yuanlong's abilities were limited, and he couldn't escape far with Han Yunqi and Long Fei Yi. He couldn't keep up after dodging 2 of the Snake Queen's attacks. "Bailey Yuanlong, take us to the right. No matter what, buy me the time needed to brew a cup of tea. Only then can I cure His Highness of the poison." Han Yunqi could only rely on Bailey Yuanlong even though she was filled with rage. "I will definitely do it. This general will issue a military order." Bailey Yuanlong answered firmly. He gritted his teeth and led Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqi to avoid the attack of the snake's tail. He sent the 2 of them to the right corner of the poison cave. Bailey Yuanlong, don't go too far. The Snake Queen doesn't dare to attack me with her poison, only her tail. If you stand behind me, you won't be poisoned. Han Yunqi said. All right. Bailey Yuanlong immediately agreed. He remembered how he had been so obedient to Han Yunqi back in the Commander-in-Chief's manor. He couldn't think about the past. Whenever he did, he would cry. Han Yunqi didn't care how much time Bailey Yuanlong could buy for her. She only had one thought in mind, which was to cure Long Fei Yi of the poison and save Long Fei Ye's life. Everyone could only live if he lived. If something happened to him, who would live? After giving Bailey Yuanlong instructions, Han Yunqi turned around and met Long Fei Ye's cold eyes. They were filled with hostility, as if they wanted to destroy the world. She was shocked and hurriedly grabbed his hand. Yi, listen to me, okay? Calm down. I'm fine. Really? It's just a broken leg. It can be cured. She didn't even know if he would suddenly draw his sword and charge out. If that happened, his blood would rush to his head and all her efforts would be in vain. Sure enough, Long Fei Yi retracted his sword. Han Yunqi hurriedly pressed it down. Long Fei Yi, my life is in your hands. If your poison isn't cured, we'll all die. It's just a pair of legs. Are they worth both of our lives? Long Fei Yi, I'm begging you. Han Yunqi didn't have time. To be precise, Long Fei Yi didn't have time. Han Yunqi tugged at his belt with one hand to help him unbutton his shirt, while her other hand tightly pressed down on his hand for fear that he would use force. Once his clothes were undone, she had to use both hands to perform acupuncture. However, he still stared at her kneeling legs, his murderous aura growing stronger and stronger. Han Yunqi took his hand and pressed it against her heart. Long Fei Yi, I need you to give me strength. With that, she let go of his hand and began to search for acupuncture points on his abdomen, forcing herself to concentrate. Long Fei Yi pressed one hand on his sword and the other on Han Yunqi's heart. One hand was ruthless, the other soft. One hand was cold, and the other was warm. His self-control had always been strong, but he had never been as impulsive as he was now. He wanted nothing more than to throw away his life to destroy the world. He wanted to let go of Han Yunqi several times, but in the end, he couldn't bear to let her heartbeat go. He was on the verge of losing control. Suddenly, he felt a chill in his abdomen. He looked down and saw that Han Yunqi was crying. Her tears were dripping onto his abdomen. Only then did he realize that her face, which had always been strong and calm, was now covered in tears. Han Yunqi endured the pain in her legs as she performed acupuncture. She was worried about Long Fei Ye's impulsiveness and worried about whether Bailey Yuanlong could stop the Snake Queen. She couldn't concentrate at all. Originally, she could have finished it in a short while, but now, she felt like she couldn't finish it. She was about to break down. Long Fei Yi finally recovered from his ruthlessness. How could he lose control at this time? How could he break down? Han Yunqi needed him. No matter how powerful they were or how high their status was, there was one thing he would always surpass her in, the strength of his heart. No matter what, his heart had to be stronger than hers. Only then would he be able to protect her. He finally let go of his sword and rested his hands on her shoulders. Yunqi, be good, it'll be fine. Trust me, it'll definitely be fine. Han Yunqi dearly wanted him to give her strength. Hearing his gentle voice calmed her heart. As long as he was calm, she could be calm as well. She wiped away her tears and gathered her thoughts. Needle by needle, her movements were nimble and beautiful. By now, Bailey Yuanlong had already been swung around multiple times by the Snake Queen's tail. Although the blows landed on his chest and back, he used internal energy to protect his body and bones. His sword had already been flung to one side and his body was riddled with internal injuries. He could only rely on his broken body to resist the Snake Queen's tail. He mustered up all his strength and used all his internal energy to get into a horse stance behind Han Yunxi. If the Snake Queen wanted to hurt Han Yunxi and the rest, it would have to hit him first. There was a loud crash. The Snake Queen's tail came crashing down, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. Although he was on the verge of collapse, he grit his teeth and steadied himself. Soon enough, there was another crash as the Snake Queen's tail came crashing down again. Bailey Yuanlong's body swayed and almost fell backwards. Bailey Yuanlong only felt the world spin before his vision turned pitch black. He simply closed his eyes and forgot everything before him, including the injuries on his body. In his mind floated the image of Han Yunxi sparring with the head of one of the south-central regions and fighting for power for the Bailey army. Back then, that girl had nothing to do with Western Qin. She was purely Qin Wangfei, the mistress he was proud of. Bam, bam, bam. The Snake Queen thrashed about madly, each blow harder and faster than the last. Bailey Yuanlong's blood had already spilled onto the Snake Queen's tail. He was already prepared to die here, so dying like this would be a peace of mind. Just how long was the time it took to brew a cup of tea? Bailey Yuanlong didn't know how much time had passed. He only felt that his internal energy was about to run out and his legs were about to give out. His entire body leaned back uncontrollably. Esteemed Wangfei, how long has it been? He muttered to himself. He didn't even realize that he'd called her esteemed Wangfei. If His Highness was only Tianning's Duke of Qin and Han Yunxi was only their esteemed Wangfei, wouldn't everything be much simpler? He was a soldier who led troops into battle and killed enemies. If His Highness wasn't the one who gave him pointers, then it was the strategists who came up with strategies. More than anyone else, he wanted everything to be simple. All of his daughters' marriages had been forced out of their own hands. His most beloved eldest daughter had concealed her identity and married off to the distant northernly. Even now, no one else in the Bailey army knew that there was actually an eldest young miss in the family. His youngest daughter, Mingxiang, had stayed by his side for the longest time, but she'd suffered the most. All of this was for the sake of revenge and the revival of East Qin. Oh. What was wrong with him being on guard against Western Qin's princess? He'd already tacitly approved of His Highness's willfulness, so shouldn't he be on guard against her as well? But now he didn't even know if he was right or wrong. Just as Bailey Yuanlong was about to fall to the ground, Su Donglin caught him. He could faintly hear Su Donglin say, "Someone come, send General Bailey up first." After that, he fell unconscious. Bailey Mingxiang had already reached the surface while Su Donglin led 20 poison guards to rescue him. He'd long wanted to come down, but His Highness's orders prevented him from interfering with His Highness and the princess, so he could only endure. Bailey Mingxiang hadn't even reached the top of the cave when he heard her shouts. He knew the situation wasn't good and immediately rushed down to rescue General Bailey. The princess was still helping His Highness detoxify the poison while he stood guard on one side. The 20 poison guards worked together to stop the Snake Queen and buy time for the princess. At this moment, the shadow guard above the snake cave was transmitting true qi to the bloodied Bailey Yuanlong to heal his wounds. Even so, fresh blood continued to flow from Bailey Yuanlong's mouth. The shadow guards were starting to panic. Bailey Mingxiang fell to sit on the side, tears streaming down her face like a broken dam. "Father! Father, you have to hold on. Father, you said you'd personally lead troops to flatten Tianning and kill your way to northernly. You said you'd personally see His Highness ascend the throne." Sob, sob. Father, you promised the clansmen that once His Highness revived East, you'd personally go into the water to salvage the skeletons of the merfolk soldiers. You promised that you would help them find their families and erect a monument for them. Father, you can't die, you can't die. After an indeterminate amount of time, Long Fei Ye's poison was successfully detoxified. The 20 merfolk soldiers and Su Donglin protected Han Yunshi while Long Fei Yi killed the Snake Queen with his sword. With nothing to worry about, he easily avoided the Snake Queen's poison gas under Han Yunshi's guidance. Within 3 moves, he'd split the Snake Queen into 3 parts with 3 slashes before killing off the rest of the snakes on the walls one by one. He stood in front of Han Yunshi, hoping with all his might that Han Yunshi would stand up like before and wrap her arms around his neck. But Han Yunshi only sat paralyzed on the ground. He didn't dare examine her leg, afraid that he wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Was it really only broken? Han Yunshi smiled at him, her face pale. It's fine. He didn't say anything, only stared deeply at her without saying a word for a long time. When facing each other, whose heart was stronger? You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.